Welcome back, legends. This is HP Fiction. Here we explore powerful Harry Potter what-if stories. What if Harry awakened a god-tier system and used unlimited gold to buy every magical business in Britain? If you enjoy epic magical videos, subscribe to HP Fiction. Now, let the story begin. Chapter 1, The God-tier System. The cupboard under the stairs had never felt smaller. Harry Potter pressed his knees against his chest, the familiar sting of hunger gnawing at his stomach. Through the thin wooden door, he could hear the distant rumble of Uncle Vernon's snores, punctuated by the occasional creak of the old house settling. Moonlight bled through the cracks in the floorboards, painting silver stripes across his thin blanket. He was 11 years old. In 1 week, he would be 12. And in all that time, nothing had ever changed. Except tonight, something was different. A warmth bloomed in his chest, spreading outward like honey poured into cold water. It wasn't painful, but it was strange, alien in a way that made his skin prickle with goosebumps. The warmth grew, and with it came a pressure behind his eyes, a sense of something pressing against the edges of his consciousness. Harry squeezed his eyes shut. When he opened them, the world had changed. A translucent screen hovered in the darkness before him, its edges glowing with soft amber light. Words formed across its surface, elegant and ancient-looking, as if they had been written with a quill dipped in liquid gold. System initialization complete. Welcome, heir of the Potters. You have been chosen to receive the God-tier system, a divine inheritance locked within your bloodline since the founding of your noble house. The protections placed upon you by your mother's sacrifice have, through a rare confluence of ancient magic, unlocked this dormant power. This system will grant you abilities, resources, and knowledge beyond mortal imagining. Your journey begins now. Harry blinked. Once. Twice. He reached out a trembling hand, his fingers passing through the shimmering screen as if it were made of smoke. I'm dreaming, he whispered to the darkness. This is just another dream. The screen flickered, new words appearing. This is no dream, Harry James Potter. Your life has been one of hardship and neglect, hidden from your true nature by those who feared what you might become. The blood wards that protect you also suppress your magic, keeping you small and unseen. But the system recognizes your true worth. Would you like to proceed? Harry's heart hammered against his ribs. His mouth went dry. Some part of him, the part that had survived years of Dudley's bullying and Uncle Vernon's rages, screamed at him to be careful. This was too strange. Too impossible. But another part, the part that had always known he was different, that had made strange things happen when he was scared or angry, that part leaned forward. Yes, he breathed. The screen exploded with light. 3 hours later, Harry sat cross-legged on his thin mattress, his eyes wide and his mind racing. The system had explained everything. It had shown him his status, his abilities, and the path that lay before him. And it had given him something that made his hands shake with a giddy, terrified joy. Unlimited gold. Not just gold, galleons, sickles, and nuts, the currency of the magical world he had only recently discovered existed. The system had created a private dimension, a space only he could access, where mountains of gold gleamed under an eternal sun. He could reach into that space and pull out coins whenever he wished, as easily as breathing. But the gold was only the beginning. System status, initialized. User, Harry James Potter. Age, 11. Bloodline, noble and most ancient house of Potter. Magical core, suppressed, awakening in progress. System rank, 1, novice. Available quests, 3. Currency, unlimited. Inventory, empty. Skills, none, unlock by completing quests. Show me the quests, Harry. Whispered, and the screen shifted. Quest 1, The Awakening. Your magical core has been suppressed by the blood wards placed upon you by Albus Dumbledore. Though well-intentioned, these wards have kept you from realizing your full potential. Objective, achieve conscious magical manifestation. Reward, Magical Core Awakening, Rank 1, Skill Unlock, Basic Spellcasting, 10,000 System Points. Quest 2, The Oler's Path. The wizarding world communicates through owls, yet you have none. Your letters have been intercepted by those who wish to keep you ignorant. Objective: acquire a magical owl companion. Reward: familiar bond, rank 1, skill unlock, animal communication, 5,000 system points. Quest 3, the Merchant's Gambit. The wizarding economy of Britain is stagnant, controlled by a handful of ancient families who hoard their wealth and power. There are those who would see you remain powerless and poor. Objective: acquire your first property. Reward: property management skill, business acumen, rank 1, 20,000 system points. Harry read the quests 3 times, his mind struggling to process the implications. He had heard of magic, he had seen it, felt it, even used it without meaning to. But this was different. This was structure. Purpose. And the first quest, the awakening. He remembered the night the Dursleys had taken him to the zoo. The glass vanishing, Dudley falling into the snake enclosure. He remembered the strange power that had surged through him, the feeling of something ancient and vast stirring in his chest. That feeling had never gone away. It had just dimmed. These blood wards, Harry murmured. They're keeping my magic asleep? Correct. The blood wards were placed to protect you from the Dark Lord's followers, but they also suppress your natural abilities. To awaken your core, you must consciously reach for your magic and command it. The process will be painful but brief. Harry thought of the Dursleys. Of the way they had locked him away, starved him, told him he was worthless. He thought of the letters that had been addressed to him, the ones Uncle Vernon had burned and shredded and hidden. They had been trying to keep him from this. All of them, the Dursleys, Dumbledore, everyone who had known what he was and had chosen to keep it from him. No more, Harry said, and the words came out harder than he'd expected. I'm not going to be locked in a cupboard anymore. He closed his eyes and reached inward. The pain was worse than anything he'd ever experienced. It felt like his bones were melting, his blood turning to fire, his skin peeling away from muscles that burned with an intensity that made him want to scream. But he held on. He held on because he could feel it, the thing that had been sleeping inside him, the power that had been waiting for him to claim it. It was vast. Infinite. Older than the Dursleys' house, older than the wizarding world itself. And it was his. Harry gasped as the pain receded, replaced by something that felt like sunlight pouring through his veins. His skin tingled. His vision sharpened, colors growing more vivid, shadows more defined. He could hear the heartbeat of the house itself, the slow pulse of ancient magic that had seeped into the very walls over generations. When he opened his eyes, golden light was streaming from his fingertips. Magical core awakened. Rank, 1. Capacity, 500/500. Regeneration, 10 per hour. Skills unlocked, basic spellcasting. You have taken the first step on the path to godhood. Harry flexed his fingers, watching the light dance and curl like liquid sunshine. He could feel it now, the magic, always present, always waiting. It hummed beneath his skin, a song only he could hear. Basic spellcasting, he whispered. What does that mean? A new window appeared. Basic spellcasting, rank 1. You can now cast the following spells without a wand. Lumos, light. Nox, darkness. Accio, summoning, small objects only. Reparo, mending, minor damage. Only. Skill level, novice. To advance, practice and complete quests. Harry raised his hand and whispered, Lumos. Light bloomed from his palm, warm and golden, illuminating the cramped space of his cupboard. He could see everything now, the cracks in the walls, the dust on the floor, the small collection of broken toys and old clothes that represented his entire existence. Reparo, he said, pointing at a cracked plastic soldier that had been Dudley's, discarded years ago. The toy mended itself, the crack vanishing as if it had never been. Harry laughed. It was a small sound, barely more than a breath, but it was filled with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The next morning, Harry woke to the sound of Aunt Petunia's shrill voice calling him to make breakfast. He emerged from his cupboard, moving quietly, his eyes scanning the kitchen with new awareness. The magic in his veins thrummed with recognition. He could see the faint traces of it on the kettle, the stove, even the old teapot that had been in the family for generations. It was everywhere, woven into the fabric of the house like thread in a tapestry. "You're late, boy," Uncle Vernon bellowed, his face purple with rage. "Get to work." Harry didn't flinch. He walked to the stove, his movements fluid and confident, and began to cook. The bacon sizzled. The eggs scrambled. And all the while, he felt the magic in his core pulsing with a steady, reassuring rhythm. He wasn't afraid anymore. That night, when the Dursleys were asleep, Harry reached into the system's inventory and pulled out a single galleon. The coin was warm in his hand, heavy with the weight of actual gold. He turned it over, marveling at the intricate designs, the goblin face on one side, the dragon on the other. "Tomorrow," he whispered to the empty darkness. "Tomorrow, I'll make my first move." Diagon Alley was everything Harry had dreamed it would be. He had escaped the Dursleys early that morning, slipping out through the back door while they were still asleep. The system had shown him how to reach the leaky cauldron, the inn that served as the gateway to the magical world. And once he was through the barrier, once he was standing in the cobblestone alley with its crooked buildings and bustling crowds. It was overwhelming. Witches and wizards in colorful robes hurried past, their arms laden with packages. Owls hooted from perches above shops. Children ran laughing through the streets, chasing enchanted toys that darted and swirled in the air. The air smelled of cinnamon and something sweet, like melted sugar. First property, Harry murmured to himself. The system said I needed to acquire my first property. He had thought about it all night, lying in his cupboard with the golden light still dancing in his fingertips. The system had given him unlimited gold, but gold alone wasn't enough. He needed to buy something, to establish himself in the magical economy, to take his first step toward the future the system had promised. But what? He wandered through the alley, his eyes drinking in every detail. The apothecary smelled of dried herbs and something that made his nose wrinkle. Quality Quidditch supplies had brooms in the window, gleaming and perfect. Flourish and Blots had stacks of books that reached all the way to the ceiling. And then he saw it. The shop was small, tucked between a wandmaker's and a store that sold enchanted instruments. The sign above the door read, "Dervish and Banjas," in faded gold letters, and the windows were dusty, the merchandise inside looking old and neglected. A "For Sale" notice was taped to the glass, the paper yellowed with age. Harry walked closer. Through the grimy window, he could see shelves of odd trinkets and strange devices, all of them covered in dust. A few broken broomsticks leaned against the counter. A display case held what looked like cursed jewelry, the metal tarnished and dull. Property detected. Name, Dervish and Banjas. Magical mishaps and curiosities. Status, for sale, owner, unidentified. Condition, poor. Potential, high. Recommended action, acquire. Harry took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The bell above his head chimed, a sad, rusty sound. Inside, the shop was even worse than it had looked from outside. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like funeral drapes. The floorboards creaked with every step. And behind the counter, an old man with white hair and rheumy eyes looked up at him with a mixture of surprise and weariness. "Hello," Harry said, his voice echoing in the empty space. "I saw your sign. You're selling the shop." The old man blinked slowly, as if he hadn't heard anyone speak to him in years. "The shop? Yes. Yes, it's for sale. But you're just a child, aren't you? Where are your parents?" Harry felt the familiar pang of grief, but it was muted now, distant. "I'm here on my own," he said. "I have the money. I want to buy it." The old man laughed, a dry, rasping sound that turned into a cough. "The price is 2,000 galleons, boy. 2,000. Do you even know how much that is?" Harry reached into his pocket, drawing out a small pouch he had conjured from the system's inventory. He set it on the counter, and the heavy clink of coins echoed through the shop. The old man's eyes widened. He opened the pouch, staring at the gold within. This is real. This is pure galleons. Where did a child get so much? I have more where that came from, Harry said, and he was surprised by how steady his voice was. I want to buy your shop. Right now. For 2,000 galleons. The old man stared at him for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. It might have been hope. It might have been desperation. Take it, he said finally. Take it and be done with it. I've been trying to sell this place for 3 years. 3 years, and no one wants it. The curse market is dead. The ministry regulations make it impossible to sell anything interesting. I'm too old for this life, too tired. He shuffled around the counter, opening a drawer and pulling out a scroll. Here. The deed. It's yours. Just sign here. Harry took the quill the old man offered and signed his name. The moment his signature touched the parchment, he felt a surge of energy, the system responding, acknowledging his action. Property acquired. Name, Dervish and Banjas. Type, retail shop. Condition, poor. Revenue, 0 galleons, currently inactive. Upgrade options, available. Reward, property management skill, business acumen, rank 1, 20,000 system points. Harry's head spun with the influx of new information. He could see the shop in a new way now, not as a dusty, neglected space, but as a canvas. A foundation. A beginning. Thank you, he said to the old man, who was already gathering his belongings. I'll take good care of it. The old man paused at the door, looking back at Harry with something like wonder in his eyes. You're a strange one, boy. I've been in this business for 60 years, and I've never met anyone like you. Whoever you are, wherever you came from. I think you're going to do something remarkable. Then he was gone, the door swinging shut behind him, leaving Harry alone in his new property. The next few days were a blur of activity. Harry had to be careful. He had to slip back to the Dursleys each night, pretending that nothing had changed, that he was still the same powerless, worthless boy they had always known. But during the day, while they were at work or out with Dudley, he escaped to Diagon Alley and began to work on his shop. The system's new skills were invaluable. Property management, rank 1. You can now assess the condition of any property, identify areas for improvement, and manage basic operations. Upgrading this skill will unlock advanced management abilities. Business acumen, rank 1. You can now understand market trends, identify profitable opportunities, and negotiate with vendors. Upgrading this skill will unlock strategic planning abilities. Harry started with the basics. He used his gold to hire a team of magical cleaners, goblins who specialized in deep cleaning abandoned properties. They worked quickly, efficiently, and within a day, the shop was free of dust and cobwebs. The windows were washed. The floorboards were repaired. The shelves were polished until they gleamed. But the shop was still empty. The previous owner had taken everything of value, leaving behind only the broken and the worthless. Now what? Harry asked the empty space. What am I supposed to sell? The system answered with a new window. Inventory acquisition. You may now access the system's divine marketplace, where you can purchase items for resale at a fraction of their market value. Select category. Magical artifacts. Curiosities and oddities. Potions and ingredients. Broomsticks and Quidditch supplies. Books and scrolls. Custom, input your own request. Harry's breath caught. This was huge. This was more than huge, it was a revolution. He spent an hour browsing the divine marketplace, marveling at the items available. Ancient artifacts that would make the most powerful wizards weep with envy. Potions that could heal any wound, any illness. Broomsticks that flew faster than anything ever created. Books that contained secrets lost to time. The prices, for him, were trivial. A galleon here. A sickle there. He bought in bulk, filling the shop with merchandise that was impossible to find anywhere else. By the end of the first week, Dervish and Banjas was transformed. The woman who walked in on the 8th day was old and fierce, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that missed nothing. She wore robes of deep green velvet, and her fingers were adorned with rings that glittered with genuine magic. "You're the new owner," she said, her voice sharp as cut glass. "I heard Dervish finally sold his shop. I didn't expect a child to be running it." Harry straightened his shoulders. He had been expecting this: curious customers, skeptical elders, people who would underestimate him because of his age. "I'm the owner," he said. "Welcome to Dervish and Banjas. How can I help you?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "I'm looking for a particular artifact. A locket, gold, with a serpentine S on the front. Do you have anything like that?" Harry felt a chill run down his spine. The description was familiar. He had seen it in one of the system's ancient texts. The locket of Salazar Slytherin. A Horcrux. "I don't think so," he said carefully. "But I have many other items you might find interesting. Please, look around." The woman moved through the shop with the confidence of someone who had done this 100 times. She examined the artifacts, the potions, the books. And with each passing moment, her expression shifted from skepticism to surprise to something approaching awe. "These items," she said slowly. "Some of them are centuries old. How did you come by them?" "Trade secrets," Harry said, and he smiled. The woman studied him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. "You're a clever one, aren't you? I like that. I'll be back, boy. You'll be seeing more of me." She left without buying anything, but Harry didn't mind. He knew that she would be back. He had made an impression, and in the magical world, impressions were everything. The first month was a whirlwind of growth. Harry learned everything he could about the wizarding economy. He studied the market trends, the major players, the networks of power that controlled the flow of goods and money. He discovered that the magical world was, in many ways, stuck in the past. The old families hoarded their wealth, the ministry was inefficient and corrupt, and the economy was stagnant, resistant to change. But Harry had something they didn't have: unlimited gold and a system that gave him access to resources beyond anyone's imagination. He began to expand. His first purchase was an apothecary on the edge of Diagon Alley, a small shop that had been struggling for years. The owner was an old witch with failing eyesight and a growing debt to Gringotts. Harry bought her out for a generous sum, and she retired to the countryside, grateful and relieved. The apothecary was different from Dervish and Banjas. It was a working business, with regular customers and a steady stream of revenue. But it was inefficient, poorly managed, and constantly running out of essential ingredients. Harry used his system to solve the problem. He purchased rare ingredients from the divine marketplace, stockpiling them in the back room. He hired new staff, paying them well enough to ensure their loyalty. And he slashed prices, offering the best products at the lowest rates in Diagon Alley. Customers flocked to the apothecary. Within a month, it was the most profitable shop in the alley. Harry didn't stop there. He bought the Owl Post next, a struggling service that had been losing customers to faster, cheaper alternatives. With the system's help, he acquired a fleet of new owls, magical creatures bred for speed and endurance. He offered express delivery services, guaranteed returns, and prices that undercut the competition. The Owl Post was profitable within a week. He bought a broom repair shop. Then a bookstore. Then a small manufacturer of magical instruments. With each purchase, he learned more about how the wizarding economy worked, and how he could reshape it. 3 months into his journey, Harry sat in the back room of Dervish and Banjas, reviewing his progress. Properties acquired, 7. Dervish and Banjas, curiosities. The Silver Cauldron, apothecary. Wings of Fortune, Owl Post. The Broomwright, broom repair. Verse and Vine, bookstore. The Enchanted Arts, instrument manufacturing. The Quill and Ink, writing supplies. Total value, 150,000 galleons. Monthly revenue, 12,000 galleons. Profit margin, 85%. System rank, 3, apprentice. Harry smiled. He had come so far in so little time, and this was only the beginning. But there was a problem. He knew it, and the system knew it. Warning, increased activity detected. Gringotts has begun investigating the sudden influx of wealth. Ministry officials have filed inquiries regarding ownership changes. Powerful families are starting to notice the pattern. Recommendation: expand operations beyond Diagon Alley. Establish a presence in Hogsmeade. Create a network that cannot be easily traced. Harry nodded. He had been planning this for weeks. Hogsmeade was the next logical step, the only all-wizarding village in Britain, home to dozens of shops and businesses that were ripe for acquisition. But he would have to be careful. Hogsmeade was different from Diagon Alley. It was smaller, more insular, and the businesses there were often owned by families that had been in the village for generations. They would resist change. They would fight back. Harry had to be smarter. More subtle. He began to plan. The Zonko's joke shop was an institution. It had been in Hogsmeade for over a century, selling everything from fizzing whiz-bees to nose-biting teacups. But the current owner, a man named Reginald Fudge, was old and tired. His children had moved away, and he had no one to inherit the business. Harry approached him as a simple customer, buying a bag of dung bombs and engaging in casual conversation. He learned about Reginald's family, his struggles, his dreams of retirement. It took 3 months of careful cultivation, but eventually, Harry made his offer. "How much?" Reginald asked, his eyes wide. "How much are you offering?" 5,000 galleons, Harry said. "And a small pension, paid monthly, for the rest of your life." Reginald stared at him. 5,000. That's more than twice what the shop is worth. "I know," Harry said. "That's why I'm offering it. You've built something special here, and you deserve to enjoy your retirement." Reginald's eyes welled with tears. "You're a good boy," he said. "A very good boy. I don't know who you are, but you're going to go far." The deal was signed an hour later. With Zonko's in his portfolio, Harry moved quickly. He bought Honeydukes, the famous sweet shop, from its elderly owners. He bought Gladrag's Wizardwear, the clothing store, from a family that had fallen on hard times. He bought the Three Broomsticks, the most popular pub in the village, from Madame Rosmerta herself. Each purchase was carefully negotiated, the terms generous enough to ensure goodwill. Harry didn't want to be seen as a conqueror, taking what didn't belong to him. He wanted to be seen as a savior, rescuing businesses that were on the brink of failure. It worked. The residents of Hogsmeade welcomed him, grateful to have a new investor who was willing to spend money and create jobs. They didn't see the pattern, the slow, systematic acquisition of every major business in the village. By the end of his first year, Harry owned a third of Hogsmeade. But the attention was growing harder to ignore. Gringotts was the first to notice. The goblins had been monitoring the sudden influx of gold, and they had questions. Lots of them. Harry was summoned to a meeting with the goblin chief of accounts, a fearsome creature named Griphook who had cold eyes and a voice like grinding stones. "Mr. Potter," Griphook said, examining a stack of parchments. "Your transactions have been unusual. You have acquired a significant amount of property in a very short time, and the source of your funds remains unclear." Harry met the goblin's gaze. "I've been fortunate," he said simply. "I came into an inheritance from a distant relative. A very large inheritance." "Inheritance?" Griphook's eyes narrowed. "There is no record of any such inheritance in our archives. The Potter family vault has been sealed for many years," Harry said. "But the system, I mean, my family's legal team, has recently unlocked it. The funds are legitimate." Griphook studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Very well, Mr. Potter. We will continue to monitor your accounts. But I warn you, Gringotts does not take kindly to financial irregularities." Harry left the bank with a cold sweat on his brow. He had been lucky. The goblins had accepted his story, but they wouldn't accept it forever. He needed to diversify his holdings, to make it impossible for anyone to trace the source of his wealth. He needed to become bigger than the goblins. Bigger than the ministry. Bigger than anyone. The Ministry of Magic was the next to notice. A young witch named Amelia Bones appeared at his shop one afternoon, her aura badge gleaming on her robes. She was tall and severe, with no-nonsense eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Potter," she said, producing a scroll from her sleeve. "The Department of Magical Commerce has some questions regarding your recent acquisitions." Harry forced himself to remain calm. "Of course, madam. Please, sit down. Can I offer you some tea?" Bones blinked, clearly surprised by his composure. Tea would be acceptable. Harry made the tea himself, using leaves from the system's inventory. The moment the brew touched Bones's lips, her expression softened slightly. It was a calming draft, not enough to drug her, just enough to put her at ease. "These acquisitions," she said, setting down the cup. "You own a significant portion of the wizarding retail sector. The ministry is concerned that you might be trying to create a monopoly." "Madam," Harry said, spreading his hands. "I'm 11 years old. I'm not trying to create anything. I inherited a lot of money from my parents, and I wanted to invest it wisely. The shops I've bought were struggling. I'm helping them." Bones studied him, her eyes sharp despite the tea's influence. "Your parents?" "The Potters were a noble family, yes, but their estate was modest." "My parents," Harry said quietly, "were heroes. They fought against the Dark Lord and died to protect me. I'm sure there are many who would have wanted to see their legacy continue." The mention of the Dark Lord made Bones stiffen. It was a calculated move, and Harry knew it. He was using his trauma, his status, to deflect scrutiny. It worked. "Very well," Bones said, rising to her feet. "I'll file my report. But I'll be watching you, Mr. Potter. The ministry will be watching." After she left, Harry sat in the silence of his shop, his heart racing. He had passed the test, but barely. The ministry was suspicious. Gringotts was suspicious. The powerful families of the wizarding world were starting to notice that someone was quietly buying up their world. And in the shadows, far away in a crumbling manor house, another pair of eyes had just opened. Voldemort had been waiting for this. The Dark Lord sat in his throne of skulls, his serpentine face twisted into a smile that made his followers shiver. He had heard the reports, the boy, the Potter brat, suddenly flush with gold, buying up businesses across Britain. "It's him," Voldemort hissed. "The one the prophecy spoke of. He's grown powerful, faster than I expected." Lucius Malfoy bowed low. "My lord, the boy is merely a child. His business ventures are impressive, but they are just that, business. He has no political power, no magical might." "Fool," Voldemort snarled. "You see only what is in front of you. I see the pattern. He's building an empire, piece by piece. And if he continues, he will become a threat beyond anything we have faced." "Then what do you command, my lord?" Voldemort's smile widened. "We must destroy him before he can become a power. But we must be careful. Direct confrontation would alert the Order, force them into action. Instead, we will use his own system against him. We will ruin him. Drive him into debt. Take everything he has built." He raised his wand, summoning a dark cloud of smoke that swirled around the room. "The war has begun," Voldemort said, "and this time, we will win. We will crush the Potter boy, and with him, all hope for the wizarding world." Harry felt the shift in the air before he understood what it meant. He was lying in his cupboard, the familiar confines that had once felt like a cage now feeling like a sanctuary. The system had warned him that his enemies were mobilizing, that dark forces were aligning against him. Warning, hostile attention detected. The Dark Lord has begun to plan your downfall. Ministry officials, under his influence, are mobilizing against your interests. Recommendation: accelerate expansion. Create a network of allies. Prepare for economic warfare. Harry closed his eyes, feeling the magic in his core pulse with a steady, reassuring rhythm. He was no longer the same boy who had cowered in this cupboard, afraid of his uncle's fists and his cousin's cruelty. He was a warrior now. A builder. A king in the making. They want a war. Harry whispered into the darkness. Then I'll give them a war they'll never forget. He reached into the system, pulling out a stack of gold that gleamed in the faint moonlight. His fingers closed around the coins, feeling their weight, their power. Next phase, he said, and his voice was cold, determined. I'm going to buy everything. Every shop, every service, every business in magical Britain. And then I'm going to remake the world in my image. New quest, the Empire begins. Objective, acquire 20 additional properties within the next 6 months. Reward, system rank up, skill unlock, strategic planning, 100,000 system points. Warning, multiple factions are now aware of your activities. Proceed with caution. Harry smiled in the darkness. Let them come, he said. I'm ready. And in the distance, the golden light of the system pulsed in agreement. The war for magical Britain had begun, and at its center was an 11-year-old boy with unlimited gold, divine powers, and a will that would not be broken. The Dursleys would never see him again after tonight. He had outgrown them, outgrown their small-minded cruelty. He had awakened something ancient and powerful, and he would never be small again. He was Harry Potter, heir to an empire that was only just beginning to rise. And nothing would ever be the same. Chapter 2, The Empire Begins. The night air was cold against Harry's skin as he slipped through the back gate of number 4, Privet Drive. He carried nothing but the clothes on his back and the weight of gold in his pocket, gold that existed in a space only he could access, a dimension of infinite wealth that hummed with the system's quiet power. The Dursleys were asleep, their snores drifting through the thin walls of the house that had never been his home. He didn't look back. The street was empty, the street lamps casting pools of orange light on the damp pavement. Harry walked quickly, his trainers silent on the concrete, his breath misting in the cold air. He had no destination in mind, not yet. He just knew that he couldn't stay in that house any longer. Not after everything he had learned, everything he had become. The system pulsed in his awareness, a constant presence that felt like a second heartbeat. Destination suggested, the leaky cauldron. The innkeeper, Tom, is an old friend of the Potter family. He will provide you with a room and ask no questions. Recommendation, establish a permanent base of operations in the magical world. Harry nodded to himself. The leaky cauldron was the obvious choice, it was the gateway to Diagon Alley, the heart of magical commerce in Britain. From there, he could expand his operations, build his empire, and prepare for the war that was coming. He found a quiet alley and reached into the system's inventory, pulling out a small pouch of flow powder. He had never used it before, but the system had provided instructions, clear and precise. Leaky cauldron, he said, stepping into the green flames. The world spun, twisted, and reformed. Tom the innkeeper was a round, balding man with kind eyes and a voice like warm honey. He took one look at Harry, standing in his fireplace with soot in his hair and determination in his eyes, and he didn't ask a single question. Potter's boy, he said softly. I'd know you anywhere. You've got your mother's eyes. Harry felt a lump form in his throat. I need a room. For a while. Tom nodded. Top floor, the one at the end of the hall. It's got a good view of the alley. And it's quiet, you'll be able to think. I can pay, Harry said, reaching for his pocket. I have money. Tom held up a hand. No need. Your parents were good people, and they did a lot for this community. The room is yours for as long as you need it. Harry tried to argue, but Tom wouldn't hear of it. He led Harry up the creaking stairs, through a narrow hallway lined with portraits that muttered and shifted in their frames, and into a small but comfortable room at the end of the hall. There was a bed with a patchwork quilt, a desk by the window, and a fireplace that crackled with warm, welcoming flames. The window overlooked Diagon Alley, and Harry could see the lights of the shops twinkling in the darkness below. Thank you, Harry said, and his voice was thick. Thank you so much. Tom smiled. Get some rest, boy. Tomorrow is a new day. Harry didn't sleep. He sat at the desk, his face illuminated by the glow of the system's screen as he planned his next moves. The first phase of his empire was complete. He had acquired 7 properties in Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade, and he had established himself as a significant player in the wizarding economy. But the first phase was just the beginning. New objective: expand beyond the alley. Current holdings: 7 properties. Target: 50 properties within the next 12 months. Recommended strategy: diversify into transportation, communication, and essential services. Opportunity detected: the night bus. The service is currently operated by the Ministry and is notoriously unreliable. It can be acquired through a series of strategic purchases. Harry leaned forward, his eyes scanning the screen. The night bus, he remembered it from his first trip to Diagon Alley, the violet triple-decker that had screeched to a halt in front of him. It was a chaotic, uncomfortable experience, but it was also essential for the wizarding community. If he could acquire it, he could transform it into a service that was fast, reliable, and profitable. But the night bus was part of the Ministry's network, and the Ministry was already suspicious of him. He would have to be careful. Alternative opportunity: the Flow Network. The Flow Network is currently controlled by the Ministry, but individual Flow connections can be purchased and maintained by private entities. Recommendation: acquire a Flow installation and maintenance company. This will allow you to control the flow of magical travel across Britain. Harry smiled. The Flow network was the backbone of magical transportation. Every fireplace in every magical home was connected to it. If he controlled the companies that installed and maintained those connections, he would have influence over a critical piece of infrastructure. The question was, who owned those companies? The answer came in the form of a grumpy old wizard named Barnaby Bumble, owner of Bumble's Flow Fixers. Harry found him in a small workshop on the outskirts of Diagon Alley, surrounded by stacks of chimney pots and bags of Flow powder. Barnaby was short and round, with a face like a crumpled paper bag and a temper that was always simmering just below the surface. "You're the Potter boy," Barnaby said, squinting at Harry through thick spectacles. "I've heard about you. Buying up all the shops, throwing your gold around like it's nothing." "Mr. Bumble," Harry said, offering a polite smile. "I'm here to discuss a business proposition." Barnaby snorted. "I'm not selling. I've run this company for 40 years, and I'm not about to sell it to some snot-nosed brat who doesn't know the difference between a Flow connection and a chimney stack." 40 years, Harry repeated. "That's a long time to be in business. You must be tired." Barnaby's eyes narrowed. "I'm not tired. I'm just selective about who I do business with." "I'm not asking you to sell," Harry said. "I'm asking you to partner with me. I have resources, unlimited resources, actually. I can help you expand your business, reach new customers, and make more money than you've ever dreamed of." Barnaby studied him for a long moment. "And what would you get out of this?" "Access," Harry said. "Connections. A stake in the Flow network that the Ministry can't take away." Barnaby's expression shifted from suspicion to something that might have been respect. "You're a clever one, aren't you? I'll give you that." "I'll take that as a compliment," Harry said. The partnership was signed a week later. Harry invested heavily in Bumble's Flow Fixers, providing the capital to expand the business across Britain. Within a month, the company had opened branches in Hogsmeade, Godric's Hollow, and a dozen other magical communities. They were installing Flow connections in homes, businesses, and even public spaces, creating a network that was more extensive and more reliable than the Ministry's own system. And Harry was at the center of it all. Property acquired: Bumble's Flow Fixers. Type: infrastructure and transportation. Condition: expanding. Potential: critical. Revenue: increasing. Status: partner, 49% ownership. It wasn't a majority stake, not yet. But Harry didn't need a majority, he needed influence. And with his investment, he had earned a seat at the table. The pattern continued. He acquired a small broom manufacturing company called Comet Trading Company, which had been struggling for years. He infused it with gold, hired new designers, and began producing brooms that were faster, smoother, and more reliable than anything on the market. Within 3 months, Comet had overtaken Nimbus as the leading broom manufacturer in Britain. He bought a chain of apothecaries called the Wise Owl, which had outlets in every major magical community. He streamlined their supply chain, introduced new products from the system's divine marketplace, and slashed prices. The Wise Owl became the go-to destination for potion ingredients across the country. He acquired a publishing house, the Golden Quill, which printed everything from textbooks to newspapers. He hired new editors, expanded the selection, and began publishing books that contained knowledge only the system could provide, ancient texts, lost histories, and practical guides that revolutionized magical education. Each acquisition was carefully planned, carefully executed. Harry moved quickly, but he moved quietly, never drawing more attention than necessary. He used intermediaries, shell companies, and trusted employees to shield his identity. As far as anyone knew, the Potter boy was just a lucky investor who had stumbled into a fortune. But the truth was more complicated. Lucius Malfoy was not fooled. He sat in his study at Malfoy Manor, a glass of fire whiskey in his hand, staring at a stack of reports that made his blood run cold. The Potter boy, the same boy who had been nothing more than a curiosity a year ago, was building something terrifying. "He's buying everything," Lucius muttered, his voice tight. "Shops, services, infrastructure. The Fleur network, the Owl services, the broom manufacturers. I've been tracking the purchases, and they all trace back to the same source." His wife, Narcissa, sat across from him, her face pale and drawn. "The boy has money, Lucius. Everyone knows that." "Money is one thing," Lucius snapped. "This is something else. He's not just buying businesses, he's buying the foundations of our society. The Fleur network, the postal service, the potion supply chain. If he controls all of that, he controls everything." Narcissa was silent for a moment. Then she said, quietly, "What does the Dark Lord think?" Lucius set down his glass, his hands trembling. "He sees it too. He's been watching the boy, tracking his movements. And he's afraid." "Afraid?" Narcissa's eyes widened. "The Dark Lord is afraid of a child." "Not a child," Lucius said. "A power. The boy is building an empire, and if he succeeds, he'll be more powerful than anyone in magical Britain. The Dark Lord understands that. He's planning something that will destroy the boy before he can become a threat." Narcissa's face tightened. "What kind of plan?" Lucius didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew what the Dark Lord was capable of. Harry felt the weight of the threat pressing down on him. He was lying in his bed at the leaky cauldron, staring at the ceiling, when the system flashed a warning across his vision. "Alert, Dark Lord's forces are mobilizing against you. Threat level, high. Recommended action, increase security, form alliances, and accelerate the acquisition of strategic assets. New quest, the Alliance of Light. Objective, forge an alliance with the Order of the Phoenix. Reward, access to Order resources, increased protection, 50,000 system points. Warning, the Order is skeptical of your activities. They see your wealth as a potential corruption, not a solution." Harry sat up, his heart pounding. The Order of the Phoenix, he had heard about them from the system, from fragments of conversations in Diagon Alley. They were the Resistance, the group of witches and wizards who had fought against Voldemort during the First War. His parents had been members. Sirius Black had been a member. Even Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts, was one of their leaders. But they didn't trust him. They saw his wealth and assumed he had sold his soul for it. "You're not going to make this easy, are you?" Harry murmured. "The system didn't answer. It never did." The meeting was arranged through a series of intermediaries, each one more suspicious than the last. Harry found himself standing in a small pub in a remote corner of the country, waiting for the members of the Order to arrive. The pub was called the Hanged Man, and it was exactly as grim as it sounded. The floor was sticky with spilled ale, the windows were grimy, and the patrons, a motley collection of witches and wizards, watched him with suspicious eyes. Harry sat at a corner table, his back to the wall, his hand resting in his pocket where he could reach the system's inventory if he needed it. He had no wand, he had never been to Hogwarts, never learned to use one properly. But he had the system, and the system was more powerful than any wand. The door opened, and 3 figures entered. The first was a woman with bright pink hair, her face streaked with a faint silver scar that ran from her temple to her chin. She moved with the confidence of someone who had survived 100 battles, and her eyes missed nothing. The second was a tall man with a gentle face and a slight stoop, his robes patched and worn. He had an air of sadness about him, a weariness that seemed to seep from his bones. The third was a man who could only be described as grim. He was dressed in dark, practical robes, and his face was lined with years of hard living. But his eyes burned with a fire that Harry recognized. "Harry Potter," the grim man said, sliding into the seat opposite him. "You look like your father. But you have your mother's eyes." "You're Remus Lupin," Harry said, and he was surprised by how steady his voice was. "The system told me about you. You were friends with my parents." Lupin's expression flickered with pain. "The system?" "Yes. We've heard about your system. The Order has been monitoring your activities for months." "I know," Harry said. "That's why I'm here. I need your help." The pink-haired woman, Tonks, Harry remembered, snorted. "You need our help. You're the one with all the gold. You've been buying up half of magical Britain." "It's not enough," Harry said. "The Dark Lord is mobilizing against me. He's going to try to destroy everything I've built. And I can't fight him alone." Lupin studied him for a long moment. "You're young to be carrying this burden." "I've been carrying it my whole life," Harry said. "The Dursleys, the cupboard, the isolation, I've been fighting to survive since the day I was left on that doorstep. This is no different. It's just, bigger." Something shifted in Lupin's expression. It might have been understanding. It might have been pity. "The Order is reluctant to involve itself in your affairs," Lupin said. "Many of us remember what happened the last time a powerful wizard rose to prominence. They're afraid of creating another Dark Lord." "I'm not a Dark Lord," Harry said, and his voice was sharp. "I'm trying to build something. Something that will last. Something that will protect people." Tonks leaned forward. "And what exactly are you trying to build?" Harry met her gaze. "A new world. One where no child has to grow up in a cupboard. One where no one has to be afraid of going to bed at night. One where the rich don't hoard their wealth while the poor starve. I'm going to tear down the old system and build something better in its place." The table fell silent. Then Lupin spoke. "You really believe that, don't you? You really think you can change everything?" "Someone has to," Harry said. The Order agreed to an alliance, but it was a fragile one. Lupin and Tonks would keep an eye on Harry, offering advice and protection when they could. But the Order's resources were limited, and they were already stretched thin fighting Voldemort's forces. Harry would have to rely on himself. He threw himself into his work with renewed intensity. The system's quests were piling up, each one more demanding than the last, and he was determined to complete them all. Quest: the Night Bus Acquisition. Objective: purchase the Night Bus franchise from the Ministry. Status: in progress. Recommendation: leverage your influence in the Floo network to create leverage. Harry had a plan. The Night Bus was a Ministry asset, but it was also a source of constant complaints. It was slow, unreliable, and dangerous. The Ministry had been trying to improve it for years, but they had never been able to make it work. Harry could. He approached the Ministry with a proposal: he would take over the Night Bus franchise, privatizing it and turning it into a profitable, reliable service. In exchange, he would pay the Ministry a percentage of the revenue and relieve them of the burden of managing it. The Ministry was skeptical, but they were also desperate. The Night Bus was a drain on their resources, and they had bigger problems to deal with. After months of negotiations, they agreed to the deal. Property acquired, the night bus. Type, transportation. Condition, poor. Potential, high. Revenue, none, currently restructuring. Status, fully owned. Harry immediately went to work. He used the system's resources to purchase a fleet of new buses, triple-deckers that were magically enhanced for speed and comfort. He hired new drivers, trained them rigorously, and introduced a scheduling system that made the service reliable for the first time in its history. Within 3 months, the night bus was the most popular form of magical transportation in Britain. The empire continued to grow. Harry acquired a chain of magical inns called the Wayside, which provided lodging for traveling witches and wizards. He bought a manufacturing company that produced enchanted luggage, expanded their product line, and slashed prices. He purchased a network of magical greenhouses that supplied rare ingredients to potion makers across the country. Each acquisition was a piece of the puzzle, a brick in the foundation of his empire. And with each acquisition, Harry learned more about how the wizarding economy worked, and how he could reshape it. But the pressure was building. The ministry was investigating his activities. Gringotts was watching his accounts. The old families were circling, trying to figure out how to stop him. And Voldemort was planning his attack. The first blow came from an unexpected direction. Harry was in his office at the Leaky Cauldron, reviewing the latest acquisition reports, when a messenger owl arrived with a scroll sealed in black wax. The letter was from the Ministry of Magic, and its contents made his blood run cold. Notice of investigation. The Department of Magical Commerce has initiated an inquiry into your business practices. You are hereby ordered to cease all acquisitions until the investigation is complete. Violation of this order will result in severe penalties, including the seizure of your assets. Harry stared at the parchment, his hands trembling with rage. The ministry was trying to stop him. They were using their power to shut him down, to protect the old system that kept them in control. But he wasn't going to let them. Alert, Ministry investigation detected. Threat level, moderate. Recommended action, use your influence to pressure the ministry. Leverage your business holdings to create instability. Harry smiled grimly. The ministry thought they could push him around. They thought he was just a child, easy to intimidate. They were wrong. Harry's counterattack was swift and devastating. He ordered his businesses to reduce their operations, creating shortages of essential goods across the magical world. The apothecaries stopped selling potion ingredients. The owl service stopped delivering mail. The Fleur network experienced technical difficulties that prevented anyone from traveling. The ministry was thrown into chaos. Witches and wizards across Britain were unable to buy potions, send letters, or travel. The economy ground to a halt. And the public turned their anger on the ministry, demanding answers. Within a week, the investigation was dropped. The ministry had bigger problems to deal with, and they couldn't afford to alienate the boy who controlled so much of their economy. But Harry knew it was just the beginning. He had won this battle, but the war was far from over. Voldemort watched from the shadows, his serpentine face twisted with fury. The boy was more powerful than he had anticipated. He had influence, resources, and a will that would not be broken. The ministry had backed down. The old families were afraid. It was time for a more direct approach. Lucius, Voldemort hissed. You will find the boy's weaknesses. His friends, his allies, anyone he cares about. We will use them to break him. Lucius bowed low. Yes, my lord. And Lucius, Voldemort added, his voice cold as death. Bring me the boy's business records. All of them. If he wants to play the game of wealth, we will play with him. But we will play to win. Harry didn't know about Voldemort's plans. But he knew that danger was coming. The system had warned him, and he trusted the system more than he trusted anyone. Alert, Dark Lord's forces are escalating their activities. Threat level, severe. Recommended action, strengthen your defenses, acquire more allies, and secure your most critical assets. Harry spent the next week fortifying his empire. He used the system's resources to purchase advanced security charms, placing them on every property he owned. He hired a team of magical security experts, former Aurors who had no love for the Ministry or Voldemort. He created contingency plans, escape routes, and hidden reserves of gold that no one could access. He was ready for anything. Except the one thing he hadn't anticipated. The attack came in the middle of the night. Harry was asleep in his room at the Leaky Cauldron when the alarm spells triggered. He jolted awake, the system flashing red warnings across his vision. Intrusion. Detected. Location, Dervish and Banjas. Threat level, critical. Assailants, Death Eaters, 6. Harry was out of bed in an instant, his heart pounding. Dervish and Banjas, his first property, the foundation of his empire. They were going after it. They were going after everything. He ran through the streets of Diagon Alley, his trainers slapping against the cobblestones, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The system's power pulsed through his veins, and he could feel the magic building inside him. When he reached the shop, he could see the destruction already taking place. Death Eaters in black robes were smashing windows, setting fires, destroying everything in sight. And at the center of it all, a tall figure in a silver mask was laughing. "Potter boy," the Death Eater called out. Come out, wherever you are. We've got a message from the Dark Lord." Harry stepped forward, his fists clenched, his magic crackling at his fingertips. "I'm right here," he said. "And I'm going to destroy every last one of you." The Death Eater laughed. "You? Destroy us? You don't even have a wand, boy. You're nothing." Harry smiled. It was a cold smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm not nothing," he said. "I'm everything. And you're about to find out what that means." He raised his hand, and the system answered. The fight was over in minutes. Harry had never used his magic in combat before, but the system guided him, channeling his power into precise, devastating attacks. He used spells he didn't even know the names of, blasts of golden energy that sent Death Eaters flying through the air. He used shields that deflected curses, moving with a speed and grace that was beyond human. The Death Eaters were no match for him. By the time the Aurors arrived, Harry was standing in the middle of the wreckage, his chest heaving, his hands still glowing with golden light. The Death Eaters were unconscious, their masks shattered, their bodies scattered across the floor. And Harry, the boy who had been locked in a cupboard, was victorious. "Congratulations. You have successfully defended your property against a direct attack from the Dark Lord's forces. Reward, Combat Magic Unlocked, Rank 1, System Points 50,000. New Quest, The War of Wealth. Objective, survive the coming assault on your financial empire. Warning, the Dark Lord is not finished with you. He will try again." Harry walked through the ruins of his shop, his heart heavy. Dervish and Banjas had been his first acquisition, the foundation of everything he had built. And now it was gone. But he would rebuild. He would rebuild bigger, better, stronger. The Death Eaters had tried to break him, but they had only made him more determined. "They want a war," Harry said to the empty shop. "I'll give them a war. But I'll fight it on my terms." He raised his hand, and the system's power surged through him, repairing the damage, restoring the shop to its former glory. The Death Eaters had thought they could destroy him. They were wrong. He was Harry Potter, the king of magical Britain in waiting. And nothing would stop him. Chapter 3, The Golden Monopoly. The morning light crept through the soot-stained windows of Dervish and Banjas, casting long shadows across the newly restored floorboards. Harry stood in the center of his shop, his hands still tingling with the residual energy of the previous night's battle. The Death Eaters had been taken to Azkaban, their masks shattered, their pride broken. But Harry knew they were just the beginning. The system hummed in his awareness, a constant presence that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat. Status update. Properties acquired, 34. Total value, 1.2 million galleons. Monthly revenue, 85,000 galleons. System rank, 5, Merchant Prince. Threat level, critical. Dark Lord activity, escalating. Ministry scrutiny, high. Noble family interest, aggressive. Harry read the numbers with a mixture of pride and unease. 34. Properties. It was an impressive number, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. He needed more businesses, more influence, more control. The old families were circling, and Voldemort was planning his next move. He had to be ready. The bell above the door chimed, and Harry looked up to see a familiar face. Mr. Potter. The voice was smooth, cultured, and dripping with barely concealed hostility. I hope I'm not interrupting. Lucius Malfoy stood in the doorway, his silver-handled cane tapping against the floorboards, his cold grey eyes sweeping over the shop with the condescending gaze of a man who had never worked a day in his life. Behind him, two hulking figures in dark robes lurked in the shadows, bodyguards, or perhaps something worse. Mr. Malfoy, Harry said, keeping his voice steady. What brings you to my humble shop? Malfoy's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Humble. Yes, that's one word for it. I've been watching your little empire grow, Mr. Potter. Very impressive for a boy of your age. But I've also been wondering. He stepped closer, his cane tapping a slow, deliberate rhythm. Where does it all come from? The gold, the resources, the sudden ability to buy up half of magical Britain. It doesn't add up. Harry met his gaze without flinching. I inherited it from my parents. The Potter family has always been wealthy. Has it? Malfoy raised an eyebrow. I've known the Potters for many years, Mr. Potter. The family was comfortable, certainly, but not so comfortable that they could afford to buy the night bus, the Fleur network, and a dozen other businesses in the span of a few months. There's something else going on here. Something you're not telling us. Harry felt the familiar pulse of the system in his chest, a surge of power that was both comforting and dangerous. He could feel Malfoy's magic, a cold, oily presence that pressed against his own. The man was testing him, probing for weakness. I don't know what you're talking about, Harry said. I've been fortunate. That's all. Malfoy's smile widened. Fortunate. Yes. I'm sure that's exactly what the Ministry will believe when they finish their investigation. They're very thorough, you know. And they have questions. Lots of them. He tapped his cane twice, and the two figures behind him stepped forward. They were tall, broad-shouldered, with faces that were just slightly wrong, too sharp, too pale, too hungry. These are my associates, Malfoy said. They work for the Department of Magical Commerce. Very dedicated individuals. They've been looking into your affairs, Mr. Potter, and they've found some irregularities. Harry's heart rate quickened, but he kept his expression neutral. What kind of irregularities? The kind that suggest fraud, Malfoy said. Money laundering. Illegal acquisition of magical assets. Possibly even dealings with dark forces. That's absurd, Harry said. I've done nothing illegal. Have you? Malfoy's eyes glittered. Then you won't mind if we take a look at your books. Just a routine inspection. Nothing to worry about. The two figures moved forward, reaching for the shelves, the cabinets, the stacks of parchment that covered Harry's desk. They were going to search his shop, tear it apart, look for anything they could use against him. Harry stepped in front of them, his hands raised. Stop. You don't have a warrant. You don't have any authority to search my property. Malfoy laughed. Authority? My dear boy, in the world of magical commerce, authority is whatever we say it is. Now step aside before you get hurt. The two figures reached for Harry, their hands closing around his arms with crushing force. He could feel the system's power surging in his veins, a golden fire that was waiting to be unleashed. And then, from the doorway, a voice cut through the tension. Mr. Malfoy. I think you've overstayed your welcome. Everyone turned. Standing in the doorway was a tall, imposing figure in dark robes, his face hidden beneath the hood of a traveling cloak. But Harry recognized the voice. Remus Lupin. Lupin stepped into the shop, his eyes fixed on Malfoy with a cold, steady gaze. "The boy asked you to leave. I suggest you do as he says." Malfoy's face twisted with contempt. "Lupin. The werewolf. I should have known you'd be involved in this. The Ministry has been looking for you, you know. They have questions about your activities." "Let them look," Lupin said. "I have nothing to hide. Unlike you." The two bodyguards released Harry, stepping back to flank Malfoy. The tension in the room was thick, crackling like electricity before a storm. Malfoy stared at Lupin for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he smiled, a thin, cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Very well. This isn't over, Potter. The Ministry will find out what you're doing, and when they do, they'll tear your little empire apart piece by piece." He turned and strode toward the door, his bodyguards trailing behind him. At the threshold, he paused and looked back. "Enjoy your victory while you can. It won't last." Then he was gone. Harry sagged against the counter, his legs trembling with adrenaline. Lupin crossed to him, placing a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Are you all right?" Lupin asked. "Did they hurt you?" Harry shook his head. "I'm fine. I wasn't expecting Malfoy to come here." "Not like that. Malfoy is a snake," Lupin said grimly. "He's been trying to find a weakness in your empire for weeks. Today was a test, nothing more." "A test?" Harry's voice cracked. "That was a test. He was going to have his men tear my shop apart." "Yes," Lupin said. "And you stood your ground. That's more than most people would have done. Malfoy saw that. He'll be more cautious next time, more subtle. But he won't stop." Harry took a deep breath, forcing his hands to stop shaking. "I know. The system warned me. The Ministry, the old families, Voldemort, they're all closing in." Lupin's eyes widened slightly. "Voldemort? You know about him?" "I know about him," Harry said. "The system has been tracking his movements. He's planning something big, something that will destroy everything I've built. And I don't know how to stop him." Lupin was silent for a moment. Then he said, quietly, "The Order has been tracking Voldemort's activities as well. We have intelligence that suggests he's been meeting with the goblins. He's trying to turn them against you." Harry's blood ran cold. "The goblins? Why would they side with him?" "Because he's offering them something you can't," Lupin said. "He's promising them control of the wizarding banking system. A full partnership, not just a subsidiary role. And the goblins have always resented the Ministry's domination." Harry felt a chill run down his spine. Gringotts was the heart of the magical economy. If the goblins turned against him, his empire would crumble. He had to do something. "Can you help me?" Harry asked. "Can the Order help me stop this?" Lupin's expression was troubled. "The Order is stretched thin, Harry. We have our own battles to fight. But I'll do what I can. I'll warn you if I hear anything more about Voldemort's plans." "Thank you," Harry said. "That means a lot." Lupin studied him for a moment, his eyes filled with something that might have been admiration. "You're remarkable, Harry. You know that? Your parents would be proud of what you've accomplished. But be careful. The closer you get to the sun, the hotter it burns." After Lupin left, Harry sat in the silence of his shop, his mind racing. The goblins were the key. If Voldemort won them over, his empire would be at the mercy of the Dark Lord's whims. He had to get to them first, had to forge an alliance that would protect his interests. But the goblins were notoriously difficult to negotiate with. They respected power, wealth, and cunning, qualities Harry had in abundance, but he wasn't sure they would be enough. He accessed the system, scrolling through the quests until he found what he was looking for. Quest: The Goblin Alliance. Objective: Forge a permanent alliance with the goblins of Gringotts. Reward: Access to goblin resources, permanent protection of your assets, 100,000 system points. Challenge: The goblins are skeptical of wizards. They will only negotiate with someone who proves their worth. Harry nodded to himself. He would prove his worth. He would show the goblins that he was different from the other wizards, that he respected their power and their culture. And he would build an alliance that would protect his empire forever. But first, he needed to understand the goblins. Their history, their culture, their values. And there was only one place he could find that information. The restricted section of Flourish and Blots was a dark, dusty warren of books that most wizards never knew existed. Harry had purchased the bookstore months ago, but he had never explored its deepest, darkest corners. Now he stood in the candlelit aisle, surrounded by tomes that had been hidden for centuries. The system guided him, highlighting books that contained goblin lore, history, and philosophy. He read voraciously, absorbing information that would have taken years to learn through conventional study. He learned about the Goblin Wars, the treaties that had been broken, the centuries of mistreatment that had soured their relationship with wizarding kind. And he learned about their deepest desire, respect. The goblins didn't care about gold, not truly. They had plenty of gold. What they wanted was to be treated as equals, to be recognized as a powerful civilization in their own right. Every wizard who came to Gringotts saw them as servants, as functionaries, as tools to be used and discarded. Harry would be different. He spent a week preparing, learning goblin customs, practicing the formal greetings that were expected in their society. He learned their language, the guttural sounds and precise inflections that conveyed respect or disrespect with a single syllable. By the time he was ready to meet with them, he knew more about goblin culture than most wizards who had lived for 100 years. The meeting was held in the deepest chambers of Gringotts, where few wizards had ever ventured. Harry descended the long, winding staircase, his footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The air grew colder, the light dimmer, and the presence of magic grew heavier with each step. By the time he reached the bottom, he was surrounded by goblins, dozens of them, their eyes gleaming in the darkness, their faces unreadable. At the center of the chamber sat the Goblin King, a massive creature with a crown of iron and a face that looked carved from granite. His name was Ragnarok, and he had ruled the goblins for over a century. "Harry Potter," Ragnarok said, his voice a low rumble that shook the air. "We have heard of your empire. We have watched your rise. And we have wondered what you wanted from us." Harry bowed, low and formal, the way he had learned from the ancient texts. "I come to you as a friend, Lord Ragnarok. I come to offer you something that no wizard has ever offered before." Ragnarok's eyes narrowed. "And what is that?" "Respect," Harry said. "True respect. I see the goblins as equals, not as servants. I want to build a partnership that will benefit us both." The chamber erupted in whispers. The goblins murmured to each other, their eyes flickering between Harry and their king. Ragnarok raised a hand, and the whispers stopped. "Respect," he said, tasting the word as if it were something rare and precious. "You are young to offer such a thing. Many wizards have promised us respect. All of them have broken their promises." "I'm not like the others," Harry said. "I'm not part of the ministry. I'm not part of the old families. I'm building something new, something that belongs to no one but me. And I want you to be part of it." Ragnarok studied him for a long moment. Then he leaned forward, his eyes glittering with a dangerous light. "Prove it. Prove to us that you are different. Show us that your empire is worth our trust." Harry felt the system's power surging in his chest. This was it. This was the moment that would define his future. "I'll prove it," he said. "But you need to give me a chance. Let me show you what I can do." The negotiations lasted for 3 days. Harry sat in the goblin chambers, discussing trade agreements, investment opportunities, and partnerships that would benefit both wizards and goblins. He offered them a stake in his empire, a genuine partnership that would give them control over key aspects of the economy. He promised them a seat at the table, a voice in the decisions that would shape the future of magical Britain. The goblins were skeptical at first. They had been burned too many times to trust easily. But Harry was patient, persistent, and always respectful. He listened to their concerns, addressed their fears, and offered solutions that were fair and equitable. By the end of the 3rd day, Ragnar was convinced. "Harry Potter," the Goblin King said, rising from his throne. "You are unlike any wizard we have ever known. You speak of partnership, not domination. You offer respect, not condescension. We have not encountered such a spirit in centuries." He extended a gnarled hand, and Harry took it. "The goblins of Gringotts will ally with you," Ragnar said. "We will protect your assets, support your business ventures, and help you build your empire. In return, you will treat us as equals. You will honor our culture, our history, and our people. This is the deal." Harry nodded. "It's a deal. And I will never break it." The alliance with the goblins was the turning point. Within a week, Harry's empire had expanded exponentially. The goblins provided him with access to their vast network of resources, their knowledge of the magical economy, and their legendary expertise in business and finance. With their help, Harry acquired properties that had been out of reach, negotiated deals that would have been impossible, and built a network that was stronger than anything the wizarding world had ever seen. Properties acquired, 78. Total value, 8.7 million galleons. Monthly revenue, 620,000 galleons. System rank, 8, Tycoon. Goblin Alliance, active. Ministry scrutiny, maximum. Noble family interest, aggressive. Dark Lord activity, critical. Harry sat in his office, reviewing the numbers with a mixture of pride and apprehension. His empire was growing faster than he had ever imagined, but the threats were growing too. The ministry was investigating him, the old families were trying to undermine him, and Voldemort was planning his next move. But Harry was ready. He had the goblins on his side, the system at his back, and a vision that was stronger than any obstacle. He was going to win. The ministry's investigation was a farce, and everyone knew it. The Aurors who came to question Harry were young, inexperienced, and clearly intimidated by the power he had accumulated. They asked their questions, scribbled their notes, and left without any real progress. The investigation was a political maneuver, a way for the ministry to show that they were doing something while they waited for the old families to come up with a plan. But the old families were in chaos. Harry had purchased businesses that had been in their families for generations. He had offered fair prices, generous terms, and the promise of a prosperous future. Many of the families had taken the deals, grateful for the chance to escape their debts and responsibilities. But others were furious, their pride wounded, their power diminished. They gathered in secret, plotting their revenge. The Malfoys, the Blacks, the Greengrasses, the Lestranges, all of them were united in their hatred of the Potter boy who had stolen their birthright. And at the center of their plotting was Voldemort. The Dark Lord had never been more powerful. He sat in his throne at Malfoy Manor, his serpentine face twisted into a smile as he listened to the reports from his followers. The Potter boy was building an empire, but he was also making enemies. The goblins had allied with him, but the wizarding world was turning against him. "The boy is dangerous," Voldemort hissed. "But he is also arrogant. He believes that his wealth makes him invincible. He does not understand that true power comes from fear, not gold." Lucius Malfoy bowed low. "My lord, the boy's empire is vast. He controls the Fleur network, the night bus, the owl services, and dozens of other businesses. If we try to attack him directly, he will be able to fight back." "Then we will not attack him directly," Voldemort said. "We will attack him indirectly. We will turn his allies against him, poison his relationships, and strip away everything he has built. The goblins are greedy. The ministry is corrupt. The old families are proud. We will use all of them to destroy the boy." Lucius's eyes widened. "How, my lord?" Voldemort leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "We will spread rumors. We will sow discord. We will make the goblins believe that the boy is using them. We will make the ministry believe that the boy is a Dark Lord in waiting. And we will make the old families believe that the boy is planning to destroy them all." "And when they turn against him?" Lucius asked. Voldemort smiled. "Then we will move in and take everything he has built. His empire, his gold, his power, all of it will become ours. And the boy will be left with nothing. Harry felt the shift in the air before he understood what it meant. It started small, a rumor here, a whispered accusation there. His employees were treated with suspicion. His suppliers were approached with offers to betray him. His allies were targeted with threats and bribes. The system flashed warnings across his vision. Each one more urgent than the last. Alert, rumors are circulating that you have betrayed your allies. Alert, the ministry is investigating allegations of dark magic. Alert, the goblins have received anonymous threats regarding your partnership. Harry sat in his office, his hands shaking with anger. Voldemort was trying to destroy him, to turn everyone against him. And it was working. But Harry wasn't going to give up. He had come too far, built too much, to let the Dark Lord tear it all down. He accessed the system, his fingers flying across the screen. Action, counterattack. Strategy, launch a public relations campaign to counter the rumors. Use your wealth and influence to expose the Dark Lord's lies. Strengthen your alliances with the goblins and the Order. And prepare for the war that is coming. Recommendation, use the system's resources to purchase the Daily Prophet. Control the narrative. Harry's eyes widened. The Daily Prophet, the most influential newspaper in the wizarding world. If he owned it, he could control the story, shape public opinion, and expose the Dark Lord's lies. He smiled grimly. It was a bold move, perhaps even reckless. But it was exactly the kind of move that Voldemort would never expect. The acquisition of the Daily Prophet was the most complicated deal Harry had ever negotiated. The newspaper was owned by a consortium of old families, each of whom was deeply entrenched in the wizarding establishment. They were resistant to change, suspicious of outsiders, and deeply loyal to the ministry. But they were also greedy, and Harry had unlimited gold. He approached them one by one, offering sums that were impossible to refuse. Some were skeptical, others were hostile, but in the end, they all agreed. Harry's gold was too tempting, too powerful, to ignore. Within a month, he owned the Daily Prophet. Property acquired, the Daily Prophet. Type, media. Condition, established. Potential, extremely high. Revenue, 200,000 galleons per month. Status, fully owned. Harry immediately went to work. He replaced the editorial staff with journalists who were loyal to him, who believed in his vision of a better magical world. He launched a campaign to expose the truth about Voldemort's activities, revealing the Dark Lord's influence over the ministry and the old families. The response was immediate. Public opinion shifted, turning against Voldemort and his followers. The ministry was forced to act, launching an investigation into the Dark Lord's activities. The old families were disgraced, their power diminished. Harry had won the first battle. But the war was far from over. Voldemort was furious. His plan had failed, his followers were in disarray, and his influence was crumbling. But he wasn't defeated. Not yet. The boy is winning, Voldemort hissed. But he won't win for long. I have other plans. Darker plans. Plans that will destroy everything he loves. He raised his wand, summoning a cloud of black smoke that swirled around the room. Summon the Death Eaters, he commanded. We are going to war. Harry felt the darkness closing in. The system flashed warnings across his vision, each one more urgent than the last. Alert, the Dark Lord is mobilizing his forces. Threat level, catastrophic. Recommended action, prepare for a direct attack on your empire. Your businesses, your allies, your very life are in danger. Harry stood in his office, staring out the window at the lights of Diagon Alley. He had built so much, accomplished so much, and now everything was at risk. But he wasn't afraid. He had the system. He had the goblins. He had the Order. And he had something that Voldemort would never understand, a vision of a better world. Let him come, Harry said, his voice steady. I'm ready. And in the distance, the golden light of the system pulsed with a power that was both ancient and infinite. The War of Wealth had begun. Chapter 4, the war of wealth. The first sign that something was wrong came through the system at 3:47 in the morning. Harry jolted awake, his heart pounding, the golden light of the system's alerts flooding his vision. He had been sleeping in his private quarters at the Leaky Cauldron, the room that had become his sanctuary, his base of operations, the only place where he could truly rest. But rest was over. Critical alert, financial assault in progress. Multiple properties are under coordinated attack. Type of attack, economic sabotage, magical tampering, supply chain disruption. Affected properties, 12. Estimated damage, 850,000 galleons and rising. Harry was out of bed in an instant, his feet hitting the cold floorboards, his mind racing. He accessed the system's detailed reports, scrolling through the damage assessments as he threw on his robes. The attacks were widespread and sophisticated, not random acts of violence, but carefully planned operations designed to cripple his empire. The Silver Cauldron, his apothecary, had been hit first. Someone had contaminated their potion ingredients with a slow-acting curse that would cause the finished products to explode when used. The contamination was subtle, difficult to detect, and could have gone unnoticed for weeks if the system hadn't flagged the magical signatures. The Owl Post Service was next. Someone had cast a confusion charm on the birds, causing them to become disoriented and lose their way. Dozens of packages had been lost, hundreds of customers were outraged, and the service's reputation was in tatters. The Fleur network connections that Harry had invested in had been tampered with, creating dangerous fluctuations in the magical flow. Several witches and wizards had been injured when they attempted to travel, their Fleur connections spitting them out in unexpected locations. And then there was the attack on the night bus. The bus that had been struck was a triple-decker, one of the new models Harry had commissioned. It had been traveling through the countryside. When the attack happened, a curse that had shattered the protective enchantments, causing the bus to crash into a hillside. The driver was in St. Mungo's with severe injuries. The passengers, thankfully, had all survived, but the damage to the reputation of the night bus was catastrophic. Harry stared at the reports, his hands trembling with a rage so cold it burned. "They're trying to destroy everything," he whispered. "Every business, every property, every investment. They want to bankrupt me." The system pulsed in response. Analysis, attack pattern identified. Perpetrators, multiple factions operating in coordination. 1. Death Eaters, direct magical attacks. 2. Ministry officials, regulatory sabotage. 3. Noble families, economic warfare. 4. Unidentified third party, potential Gringotts involvement. Strategy, multi-pronged assault designed to overwhelm your resources and force you into a defensive position. Recommendation, immediate countermeasures required. Do not retreat. Do not concede. Fight back with equal force. Harry took a deep breath, forcing his hands to stop shaking. The system was right. He couldn't afford to panic, couldn't afford to retreat. Voldemort and his allies had launched their attack, and now it was up to him to respond. "Show me everything," he said. "Every attack, every perpetrator, every pattern. I need to understand what I'm dealing with." The system responded, flooding his vision with data. The attacks had been going on for days, but Harry hadn't noticed until now. That was part of the strategy. The perpetrators had been careful, methodical, working in the shadows to undermine his empire before he could react. The noble families had been the most insidious. They had approached his suppliers, offering them better deals if they would break their contracts with Harry. They had spread rumors that his businesses were failing, that his gold was running out, that he was on the verge of collapse. They had used their influence to pressure the ministry into increasing regulations on his properties, creating bureaucratic obstacles that were impossible to overcome. The ministry officials were the most dangerous. They were using their positions to sabotage his businesses from within, filing false complaints, conducting fraudulent inspections, and threatening his employees with legal action. Harry had always known that the ministry was corrupt, but he hadn't realized how deeply the corruption ran. And then there were the Death Eaters. They were the most direct threat, attacking his properties with a brutality that was both shocking and terrifying. They had destroyed the night bus, contaminated the apothecary, and cursed the Flu network. They were sending a message: they would burn his empire to the ground if they had to. Harry accessed the system's countermeasures, scrolling through the options. Countermeasure options. 1. Financial counterattack. Use your unlimited gold to flood the market, destabilize your enemies' businesses, and force them into bankruptcy. 2. Legal counterattack. Expose the corruption within the ministry, filing formal complaints and demanding investigations into the perpetrators. 3. Magical counterattack. Use the system's resources to protect your properties with advanced wards and security charms. 4. Political counterattack. Leverage your influence to gain allies within the ministry and the Waisengamot, turning the political tide in your favor. 5. All of the above. Recommended launch a coordinated counterattack on all fronts. Harry didn't hesitate. All of the above. The next few days were a blur of activity. Harry unleashed his financial resources, flooding the market with gold that destabilized the economies of his enemies. The noble families found themselves unable to compete, their businesses struggling to keep up with the flood of cheap goods and services that Harry's companies provided. He filed formal complaints with the ministry, using his influence to demand investigations into the corruption that had been exposed. The ministry was forced to act, launching inquiries into the officials who had been working against Harry. He used the system's resources to reinforce the security of his properties, placing advanced wards that would repel any magical attack. The wards were expensive, but Harry had unlimited gold, and he wasn't afraid to spend it. And he leveraged his political influence, building alliances with members of the Waisengamot who were sympathetic to his cause. The Order of the Phoenix helped, their connections and resources proving invaluable in the fight against Voldemort's influence. Within a week, the tide had turned. The attacks on his properties had stopped, the perpetrators were in custody, and his empire was stronger than ever. But Harry knew the war was far from over. Voldemort was furious. He sat in his throne at Malfoy Manor, his serpentine face twisted with rage. The boy had fought back, and he had won. The attacks had failed, the Death Eaters were in disarray, and the noble families were in chaos. How is this possible? Voldemort hissed. The boy is just a child. He should have been destroyed. Lucius Malfoy bowed low, his face pale with fear. My lord, the boy is more powerful than we anticipated. He has resources beyond anything we've ever seen. The goblins have allied with him, the Order is protecting him, and the ministry is beginning to turn against us. Voldemort rose from his throne, his wand crackling with dark energy. I don't care what resources he has. I don't care who is protecting him. He will fall. He will fall, and his empire will become ours. He turned to face his followers, his eyes blazing with fury. We will attack him again. We will attack him with everything we have. We will destroy his businesses, kill his allies, and leave him with nothing. And when he is broken, when he is desperate, we will move in and take everything he has built. The Death Eaters bowed, their faces hidden beneath their masks. Yes, my lord, they said in unison. We will do as you command. Harry felt the darkness closing in again. The system had warned him that Voldemort was planning another attack, but he didn't know when or where it would come. He had to be ready, had to prepare for anything. He summoned his allies, gathering them in the conference room of his headquarters. Lupin was there, his face lined with exhaustion. Tonks was there, her pink hair bright against the dark walls. The goblins sent a representative, a fierce creature named Griphook who had a reputation for ruthlessness. Even some members of the Order had come, their faces grim with determination. We have to stop him, Harry said. Voldemort is planning something big, something that will destroy everything we've built. We can't let that happen. Lupin nodded. Agreed. But how? We're stretched thin as it is. We don't have the resources to fight a full-scale war. Harry smiled. That's where I come in. I have the resources. I have the gold, the system, and the power to fight back. But I can't do it alone. I need your help, your expertise, your connections. Tonks leaned forward. What do you need us to do? Harry met her gaze. I need you to infiltrate Voldemort's organization. Find out what he's planning, when he's planning it, and where he's going to strike. I can't fight a war against an enemy I can't see. Tonks nodded slowly. It's dangerous, but it's possible. I know people who can help. Good, Harry said. I also need you to protect my properties. The attacks are going to escalate, and I need everyone working together to defend them. Griphook spoke up, his voice like grinding stones. The goblins will provide additional security. We have a vested interest in protecting your empire, Mr. Potter. If you fall, we fall with you. Harry nodded. Thank you. I won't forget this. The weeks that followed were the most intense of Harry's life. He worked around the clock, managing his businesses, coordinating with his allies, and planning for the next attack. The system was a constant presence, guiding him, supporting him, helping him stay one step ahead of Voldemort's forces. The attacks came, but they were weaker than before. Harry's countermeasures had taken a toll on Voldemort's resources, and the Dark Lord was struggling to maintain his momentum. The noble families had withdrawn their support, terrified of the economic devastation that Harry was capable of unleashing. The ministry officials had been purged, replaced by people who were loyal to Harry's vision. But Voldemort wasn't finished. Not yet. The attack came on a Thursday, at the height of the evening rush. Harry was in his office at the Leaky Cauldron, reviewing the latest financial reports, when the system flashed a warning across his vision. Critical alert, major attack in progress. Location, Gringotts Bank, Diagon Alley. Nature of attack, direct assault by Death Eaters. Objective, destruction of Goblin Alliance and seizure of Harry Potter's assets. Warning, this is the largest attack yet. Proceed with caution. Harry was out of his chair in an instant, his heart pounding. Gringotts was the heart of his financial empire. If the Death Eaters destroyed it, everything he had built would be lost. He ran through the streets of Diagon Alley, his trainers slapping against the cobblestones. The shops were dark, the windows shuttered, the streets empty except for the occasional figure scurrying for cover. The attack had driven everyone indoors. When he reached Gringotts, the scene was chaos. The massive doors had been blasted open, and Death Eaters in black robes were swarming through the entrance, their wands blazing with dark magic. Goblins lay motionless on the ground, their bodies broken and bleeding. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning stone. Harry didn't hesitate. He charged into the fray, the system's power surging through his veins. He raised his hands, and golden light exploded from his palms, sending Death Eaters flying through the air. Get away from them, he shouted. Get away from the goblins. The Death Eaters turned to face him, their masks gleaming in the firelight. There were dozens of them, each one more powerful than the last. But Harry didn't care. He had the system. He had the power to fight back. The battle was brutal and chaotic. Harry moved through the chaos like a whirlwind, his magic flowing through him in waves of golden light. He blasted Death Eaters with spells he'd never learned, shielded himself from curses he'd never seen, and fought with a ferocity that stunned even him. But they kept coming. There were too many, too powerful, too determined. And then, in the middle of the chaos, Harry saw the Goblin King. Ragnarok was trapped beneath a collapsed pillar, his iron crown askew, his face twisted with pain. 2 Death Eaters stood over him, their wands raised, ready to deliver the killing blow. No! Harry screamed. Get away from him. He ran toward them, his magic blazing, his heart pounding. He blasted one Death Eater aside, then the other, standing over the fallen Goblin King with his arms spread wide. You want to hurt him? Harry shouted at the remaining Death Eaters. You'll have to get through me first. The Death Eaters paused, their eyes fixed on the glowing figure in front of them. For a moment, there was silence. And then they attacked. The fight was the most intense of Harry's life. He fought with everything he had, the system's power blazing through him in waves of golden light. He blasted Death Eaters aside, protected the fallen goblins, and stood his ground against an onslaught that should have overwhelmed him. But it wasn't enough. There were too many, and they were too strong. Harry could feel his energy waning, his magic fading. He was losing. And then, from the shadows, a voice cut through the chaos. "Harry! We're here." It was Lupin. Behind him, Tonks and a dozen other members of the Order were charging into the fight, their wands blazing with light. They engaged the Death Eaters, driving them back, forcing them to retreat. The tide of the battle turned. Harry fell to his knees, his chest heaving, his magic spent. But he had done it. He had saved the goblins. He had protected his empire. Ragnarok, the Goblin King, struggled to his feet, his eyes fixed on Harry with a mixture of wonder and respect. "Harry Potter," he said, his voice hoarse. "You saved my life. You saved my people. The goblins will never forget this." Harry smiled weakly. "We're allies, Ragnarok. That's what allies do. We protect each other." Ragnarok nodded slowly. "Yes. We are allies. And we always will be." The aftermath of the attack was devastating. Gringotts was in ruins, and dozens of goblins had been killed. The Death Eaters had escaped, but they had left behind a trail of destruction that would take months to repair. Harry's empire had been shaken, but it hadn't been destroyed. And Harry had gained something invaluable, the eternal loyalty of the goblins. "Mr. Potter," Ragnarok said, as they stood in the ruins of the bank. "We have always considered wizards to be untrustworthy. But you have proven us wrong. You have shown us that there is honor among your kind." Harry nodded. "I meant what I said, Ragnarok. We're allies. And I'll never break that promise." Ragnarok extended his hand, and Harry took it. "Then let us rebuild," the Goblin King said. Together. The weeks that followed were a time of rebuilding. Harry used his unlimited gold to repair the damage to Gringotts, funding the reconstruction and providing compensation to the families of the fallen goblins. The goblins were grateful, their loyalty to Harry stronger than ever. But Voldemort wasn't finished. He was regrouping, planning his next attack. The war was far from over. Harry knew that he had to end it. He had to defeat Voldemort once and for all, before the Dark Lord could do more damage to his empire and his people. He accessed the system, scrolling through the quests until he found the one he was looking for. Quest: The Final Battle. Objective: Defeat Voldemort and his forces. Reward: Unlock all system abilities, permanent protection of your empire, and the ability to reshape the wizarding world as you see fit. Challenge: Voldemort is the most powerful dark wizard in history. You will need all your resources, allies, and power to defeat him. Harry nodded to himself. He was ready. He had the system, the goblins, the order, and the power to fight back. "Show me where he is," Harry said. "I'm going to end this." The system located Voldemort's headquarters in a remote manor in the Scottish Highlands. It was protected by powerful wards, but Harry had the resources to break through them. He gathered his allies, preparing for the assault. Lupin, Tonks, the Order, the Goblins, and dozens of other witches and wizards who had come to support his cause. They were ready to fight, ready to die for the future that Harry had promised them. The assault was launched at dawn. Harry led the charge, his magic blazing, the system's power surging through him. He broke through the wards, blasted through the doors, and fought his way into the heart of the manor. Voldemort was waiting for him, his serpentine face twisted with rage. "Harry Potter," the Dark Lord hissed. "You've come to die." "I've come to end this," Harry said. "You've terrorized the wizarding world for too long. It's time for you to fall." The battle that followed was epic. Harry and Voldemort fought with all their power, their magic blazing across the room in a storm of light and shadow. Harry was powerful, but Voldemort was experienced, cunning, and ruthless. But Harry had something Voldemort didn't have: the system. The system guided his attacks, strengthened his defenses, and fueled his magic with unlimited power. He was unstoppable, his golden light overwhelming the Dark Lord's dark magic. In the end, Voldemort fell. Harry stood over him, his chest heaving, his magic spent. The Dark Lord was defeated, his power broken, his followers scattered. "It's over," Harry said. "You're done." Voldemort looked up at him, his face twisted with hatred. You've won. For now. But there will be others. There will always be others who rise against you. "Let them try," Harry said. "I'll be ready." The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. Harry had defeated Voldemort, but the Dark Lord's followers were still out there, still plotting, still waiting for their chance to strike. The noble families were still resentful, the ministry was still corrupt, and the world was still in chaos. But Harry had a plan. He would use his empire, his gold, and his power to reshape the wizarding world, to create a future that was brighter and better than anything that had come before. He would be the king of magical Britain. And nothing would stop him. Chapter 5, The Ultimate Upgrade. The morning after Voldemort's defeat, Harry woke to a world that felt both lighter and heavier than it had ever been. Lighter because the shadow that had hung over the wizarding world for decades had finally been lifted. The Dark Lord was gone, his followers scattered, his influence shattered. The ministry was in chaos, the noble families were in retreat, and the people of magical Britain were beginning to hope again. Heavier because Harry now carried the weight of that hope on his shoulders. He lay in his bed at the leaky cauldron, staring at the ceiling, the golden light of the system pulsing gently in his peripheral vision. The battle had taken everything out of him, his magic, his energy, his very soul felt drained. But the system was already replenishing him, its power flowing through his veins like warm honey. System status, recovering. User, Harry James Potter. Age, 12. Bloodline, noble and most ancient house of Potter. Magical. Core, rank 8, ascendant. System rank, 10, magnate. Available quests, 2. Currency, unlimited. Inventory, expanding. Skills, 15, unlocked. New achievement, the Dark Lord's Bane. You have defeated the most powerful dark wizard in modern history. Your legend is now cemented in the annals of magical Britain. Reward, ultimate upgrade unlocked. System points, 500,000. New quest, the ultimate upgrade. Objective, unlock and implement all system upgrades to revolutionize magical Britain. Sub-objectives. 1. Upgrade magical core to rank 10, God tier. 2. Unlock legendary skills. 3. Revolutionize magical technology. 4. Transform commerce and infrastructure. 5. Strengthen and empower your allies. Reward, full mastery of the system, permanent God tier status, and the ability to reshape the wizarding world. Harry sat up slowly, his body aching with every movement. The ultimate upgrade. It was what he had been working toward since the very beginning, the culmination of everything he had built, everything he had fought for. "Show me," he whispered. "Show me what I can become." The system responded, flooding his vision with light. The first upgrade was the most personal, the transformation of his magical core. Harry had always known that his magic was different. It had felt strange to him from the very beginning, powerful and untamed, like a wild animal that could only be controlled through sheer force of will. But the system had taught him to harness it, to shape it, to make it his own. Now, the system was offering him something more. Magical core upgrade, rank 10, God tier. Current rank, 8, ascendant. Upgrade requirements. 500,000 system points. Complete integration with system architecture. Full awakening of bloodline heritage. Description: the God tier upgrade will elevate your magical core to its highest potential. You will gain access to abilities that have not been seen since the founding of the wizarding world. Your power will be limitless, your control absolute. And your connection to magic itself will become an extension of your very being. Warning: this upgrade is irreversible. Once you achieve God tier status, you will be forever changed. There is no going back. Harry read the warning 3 times, his heart pounding. Forever changed. No going back. It was a terrifying prospect, but also an exhilarating one. He had come so far, sacrificed so much, to reach this moment. He thought about his parents, who had died to protect him. He thought about Sirius, the godfather he had never really known. He thought about all the people who had suffered and died because of Voldemort's tyranny, all the children who had grown up in cupboards like he had. He wasn't doing this for himself. He was doing it for them. "Do it," he said. "Upgrade my magical core." The system responded immediately, flooding his body with golden light. The transformation was unlike anything Harry had ever experienced. It started in his chest, a warmth that spread outward like liquid sunshine, filling every corner of his being. He could feel his magic responding, rising to meet the system's power, merging with it in a way that was both beautiful and terrifying. His skin began to glow, golden light radiating from his pores. His eyes burned with power, the world around him shifting and distorting as his perception expanded. He could see everything, the threads of magic that wove through the air, the patterns of energy that connected all living things, the vast, infinite web of existence that lay beneath the surface of reality. And then, the pain came. It was unbearable, a searing agony that tore through him from the inside out. He screamed, his body arching off the bed, his hands clawing at the sheets. The system's power was remaking him, reshaping his very essence into something new, something greater. He could feel his blood changing, his bones shifting, his very DNA rewriting itself. The magic of his ancestors, the legacy of the Potters, was awakening. Within him. He could see them now, generations of witches and wizards stretching back to the dawn of magic itself. Their power flowed through him, their knowledge filled his mind, their love wrapped around him like a warm blanket. And then, as suddenly as it had started, the pain stopped. Harry collapsed onto the bed, his chest heaving, his body slick with sweat. He was exhausted, drained, but also, different. Transformed. He raised his hand, and golden light danced across his palm. It was brighter than before, purer, more powerful. He could feel the magic humming in his veins, waiting to be unleashed. Magical core upgrade complete. Status, rank 10, God tier. Capacity, infinite. Regeneration, instantaneous. New abilities unlocked. Reality manipulation, minor. Magic absorption. Eternal sustenance. Bloodline legacy, Potter. Warning, your power is now beyond mortal comprehension. Use it wisely. Harry stared at the words, his mind reeling. Reality manipulation. Magic absorption. Eternal sustenance. He could feel the abilities pulsing within him, waiting to be used. But he also felt the weight of the warning. His power was beyond mortal comprehension. He had become something more than human, something that could reshape the world itself. Use it wisely, he murmured to himself. I will. I promise. The second upgrade was the unlocking of legendary skills. Harry accessed the system's skill tree, his eyes widening as he scrolled through the options. There were dozens of skills, each one more powerful than the last. But he could only choose a few, and he had to choose carefully. Legendary skills, selection. Available skills. Arcane mastery, full control over all magical disciplines. Divine commerce, absolute control over economic forces. Technomancy, the ability to create and control magical technology. Omniscience, limited the ability to perceive all events within a specified radius. Chronomancy, the ability to manipulate time, minor. Soul magic. The ability to perceive and interact with souls. Elemental dominion, full control over the elements. Reality weaving, the ability to reshape reality itself. Harry stared at the list, his mind racing. Each skill was a game changer, a power that could reshape the world in ways he could barely imagine. But he couldn't choose them all. He had to focus on the ones that would help him achieve his vision. I choose divine commerce, technomancy, and arcane mastery, he said. And omniscience, limited to the boundaries of my empire. Selection confirmed. Skills unlocked. Divine commerce, rank 1. Technomancy, rank 1. Arcane mastery, rank 1. Omniscience, limited. System points remaining, 50,000. Harry felt the skills settling into his mind, becoming part of his very being. He could feel the economic forces of magical Britain pulsing beneath his awareness, the threads of commerce and trade that connected every business, every transaction, every purchase. He could see the technology, the magical devices and inventions that had been stagnant for centuries, waiting to be transformed. And he could feel the magic itself, the vast, infinite power that flowed through the world, waiting to be shaped by his will. He was ready. The revolution began with the technology. Harry had always been fascinated by the magical devices that littered the wizarding world, the enchanted mirrors, the self-stirring cauldrons, the flying broomsticks. But they were primitive compared to what he could create. He accessed the technomancy skill, feeling the power flow through him. He could see the blueprints in his mind, the designs for devices that would transform the wizarding world. Communication networks, transportation systems, energy sources, all of it was within his reach. He started with the communication network. The wizarding world relied on owls for communication, a system that was slow and unreliable. Harry had already transformed the owl post, but he could do so much more. He designed a magical network that would allow witches and wizards to communicate instantly, no matter where they were. He called it the Flunexus, a system that connected every Flu-connected fireplace to a central network, allowing for real-time communication. He built the first prototypes in his workshop, using the system's resources to create enchanted mirrors that could connect to any other mirror in the network. They were elegant devices, crafted from silver and crystal, and they worked flawlessly. Next came the transportation revolution. The night bus and Flun network were good, but they had their limitations. Harry designed a new system, a magical portal network that could transport people anywhere in the world with a single step. He called it the Portal Gate, and it was powered by the same magic that fueled the system itself. The gates were expensive to build, but Harry had unlimited gold. He commissioned the goblins to construct them, using their expertise in metalworking and enchantment to create devices that were both beautiful and functional. Within a month, the first portal gate was operational, connecting Diagon Alley to Hogsmeade in a single step. Within a year, the network had expanded to cover all of Britain, and then beyond. The magical world was being transformed. The commerce revolution was next. Harry used his divine commerce skill to analyze the wizarding economy, identifying inefficiencies and opportunities. He saw that the old families were still controlling the flow of goods, using their influence to keep prices high and competition low. He saw that the ministry was still collecting taxes and imposing regulations that stifled growth and innovation. He decided to change all of that. He created a new economic system, one that was based on fairness and opportunity rather than privilege and corruption. He used his businesses to set fair prices, to pay fair wages, to create opportunities for witches and wizards from all backgrounds. He also created a new currency, the Golden Mark, which was backed by the system's unlimited gold reserves. The currency was stable, reliable, and immune to the inflation that had plagued the wizarding economy for centuries. The impact was immediate. The old families found themselves unable to compete with Harry's businesses, their control over the economy crumbling. The ministry was forced to adapt, its regulations rendered obsolete by the new economic system. And the people of magical Britain benefited. They had access to affordable goods, reliable services, and opportunities they had never dreamed of. Harry was building a new world. But the revolution wasn't just about technology and commerce. It was about people. Harry used his arcane mastery skill to revolutionize magical education. He had never attended Hogwarts, but he had studied the curriculum through the system, and he had seen its flaws. It was outdated, exclusive, and focused on preparing students for a world that no longer existed. He created a new educational system, one that was open to all witches and wizards, regardless of their background. He built new schools, new curricula, new opportunities for learning and growth. He used the system's knowledge to create textbooks that were more accurate, more comprehensive, and more accessible than anything that had come before. He also created scholarships, funded by his unlimited gold, that allowed students from poor families to attend the best schools. He created apprenticeship programs that paired students with skilled professionals, giving them hands-on experience in their chosen fields. And he created a university, the first of its kind in the wizarding world, where witches and wizards could pursue advanced studies in magic, technology, and commerce. The future was being built, one brick at a time. The strengthening of his allies was the final piece of the puzzle. Harry had always been grateful for the support of his friends and allies. And he was determined to repay their loyalty with more than just gold. He used his system resources to enhance their abilities, to give them the power they needed to protect themselves and their families. Lupin was the first to benefit. Harry had always admired the man's wisdom and courage, and he had seen the struggle that came with his lycanthropy. The system offered a solution, a cure. "Are you sure?" Lupin asked, his voice trembling. "A cure for lycanthropy? I've been told my whole life that it's impossible." "Nothing is impossible," Harry said. "Not for me. Not anymore." He performed the ritual himself, using the system's power to purge the curse from Lupin's blood. The transformation was painful, but short. When it was done, Lupin was free. "I don't know how to thank you," Lupin said, tears streaming down his face. "You've given me my life back." "Just stay by my side," Harry said. "That's all the thanks I need." He performed similar rituals for other allies, curing curses, healing injuries, and enhancing their natural abilities. Tonks was given greater control over her metamorphagus powers, allowing her to change her form with a thought. The goblins were given access to the system's advanced metalworking techniques, enhancing their already legendary craftsmanship. And the Order of the Phoenix was transformed, its members given the resources and abilities they needed to protect the wizarding world from any threat. Harry was building an army, but it was an army of allies, not enemies. An army that would protect the world he was creating. The culmination of the ultimate upgrade came with the revolution in magical infrastructure. Harry had been working on this for months, using his technomancy and arcane mastery skills to design a system that would transform the very foundations of magical Britain. He called it the Nexus Network, and it was the most ambitious project he had ever undertaken. The Nexus Network was a system of magical conduits that would channel the world's magic, distributing it to where it was needed most. It would power the portal gates, the communication systems, and the new technologies that were transforming the wizarding world. It was also a defense system, capable of detecting and neutralizing any threat to Harry's empire. The conduits could be used to create barriers, to repel attacks, and to protect the people who lived within the network's reach. The construction of the Nexus Network took months, but Harry was patient. He worked alongside the goblins, the Order, and his allies, pouring his power and his resources into the project. When it was finally complete, the impact was immediate. The magical world was transformed, its infrastructure stronger, more efficient, and more equitable than ever before. The portal gates connected every corner of Britain, making travel instant and safe. The Flynexus enabled instant communication, bridging the gaps that had separated communities for centuries. The new technologies had created opportunities for growth and prosperity that had never existed before. And Harry's empire was more secure than ever, its foundations reinforced by the Nexus Network's power. Ultimate upgrade complete. System status, God tier. User, Harry James Potter. Rank, 10, Magnate. Skills unlocked, 18. Properties, 247. Total value, 47 million galleons. Revenue, 3.2 million galleons per month. Protection status, maximum. Nexus Network, active. Magical Britain, transforming. Harry sat in his office, staring at the numbers with a mixture of pride and awe. He had done it. He had transformed the wizarding world, built an empire that was stronger than anything anyone had ever imagined. But he knew the work wasn't finished. There were still challenges ahead, still battles to be fought. The old families were still resentful, the ministry was still corrupt, and the shadows of the past still lingered. But Harry was ready. He had the system, the power, and the vision to build a better world. And nothing would stop him. The first challenge came from an unexpected direction. Harry was in his office, reviewing the latest Nexus Network reports, when a messenger owl arrived with a scroll sealed in green wax. The letter was from the goblins, and its contents made his blood run cold. Urgent notification. Mr. Potter. We have detected a breach in the Nexus network. Someone has been siphoning magic from the conduits, diverting it to an unknown location. The loss of power is small, but it is growing. If this continues, the network may be compromised. We are investigating the source of the breach, but we have been unable to locate it. The perpetrator is skilled, resourceful, and clearly familiar with the network's design. We recommend immediate action. If the network falls, the Empire falls with it. Ragnarok, Goblin King. Harry stared at the letter, his mind racing. Someone was stealing his magic, siphoning power from the Nexus network. It was a calculated attack, designed to undermine the very foundations of his empire. But who could have done it? Voldemort was dead. His followers were scattered. The old families were in retreat. There was no one left who could mount such a sophisticated assault. And then, Harry remembered. He had been warned about this. The system had shown him fragments of a vision, a glimpse of a future where a mysterious enemy rose to challenge his rule. He hadn't understood the vision at the time, but now it was clear. There was someone out there, someone who had been watching him all along, waiting for the moment to strike. "Show me," Harry said. "Show me who is behind this." The system responded, its golden light pulsing with power. Analysis, source of breach identified. Perpetrator, unknown. Method, dark magic, Horcrux manipulation. Location, remains of Malfoy Manor. Threat level, catastrophic. Warning, the perpetrator is using the remnants of Voldemort's Horcruxes to siphon power from the Nexus network. They are building something that could destroy everything you have created. Harry's heart sank. Voldemort was gone, but his legacy lived on. The Horcruxes, the artifacts of dark magic that had preserved his soul, were being used to attack the empire that Harry had built. He had to stop them. He had to protect the Nexus network, his empire, his people. "I'm going," Harry said. "I'm going to Malfoy Manor, and I'm going to end this." The journey to Malfoy Manor was swift, the portal gate transporting him to the edge of the property in an instant. He could feel the dark magic pulsing from the ruins, a malevolent presence that made his skin crawl. The manor had been abandoned since Voldemort's defeat, its grounds overgrown, its walls crumbling. But Harry could see the signs of activity, fresh tracks in the mud, strange symbols carved into the stones, the faint glow of dark magic emanating from the depths of the building. He approached cautiously, the system's power humming in his veins. His skills were fully unlocked, his magic at its peak. He was ready for anything. Inside, the manor was a nightmare of shadows and whispers. The air was thick with dark magic, the remnants of Voldemort's evil clinging to every surface. Harry moved through the rooms, his senses on high alert, the system guiding him toward the source of the power. He found it in the basement, a hidden chamber that had been sealed for decades. Inside, a figure was kneeling before a massive altar, surrounded by shattered Horcruxes and swirling dark magic. "Who are you?" Harry demanded. "What are you doing?" The figure turned to face him, and Harry's blood ran cold. It was a woman, pale and beautiful, with hair like spun silver and eyes that burned with an ancient, malevolent light. She smiled, and the darkness seemed to pulse around her. "Harry Potter," she said, her voice like honey laced with poison. "I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Who are you?" Harry repeated, his hand raised, the golden light of the system blazing in his palm. "I am the one who was forgotten," she said. "The one who was cast aside when the Dark Lord rose to power. I am the true heir of Salazar Slytherin, and I am here to take back what is mine." Harry stared at her, his mind racing. The true heir of Slytherin? He had never heard of such a thing. But the system was confirming it, its warnings flashing across his vision. Identification, Miranda Gaunt. Status, Horcrux infused. Threat level, catastrophic. Abilities, dark magic mastery, Horcrux manipulation, soul control. Goal, destruction of Harry Potter's empire, ascension to god-tier status. "You're a Gaunt," Harry said, understanding dawning. "A descendant of Salazar Slytherin. But how did you survive?" Voldemort killed all of them. Morana laughed, a sound like breaking glass. He thought he killed all of them. He was wrong. I was hidden, protected by a spell that even the Dark Lord couldn't break. And when he fell, I knew my time had come. She raised her hand, and the dark magic pulsed around her, thick and malevolent. You think you're powerful, Harry Potter? You think your system makes you invincible? I've been studying you, learning your weaknesses, waiting for the right moment to strike. You're not going to win, Harry said. I've faced Voldemort, and I defeated him. I can defeat you too. Morana smiled. Oh, I'm counting on that. I'm counting on you fighting back. Because when you do, you'll be playing right into my hands. She raised her wand, and the dark magic exploded toward him. The battle that followed was the most dangerous Harry had ever faced. Morana was powerful, her dark magic fueled by the Horcruxes she had absorbed. She moved with a speed and grace that was almost inhuman, her spells hitting with devastating force. But Harry was powerful too. His god-tier magical core blazed with golden light, the system's skills guiding his attacks and defenses. He fought with everything he had, pushing himself to his limits and beyond. The battle raged for hours, the chamber shaking with the force of their magic. Harry was winning, but just barely. Morana was relentless, her dark magic fueled by a hatred that seemed to have no end. And then, in a moment of distraction, she landed a blow. The dark curse hit him in the chest, sending him flying across the room. He crashed into the wall, his body screaming with pain. He tried to get up, but his limbs wouldn't respond. The dark magic was coursing through him, freezing him in place. Morana approached slowly, her smile triumphant. Did you really think you could win? She asked. Did you really think you could defeat the true heir of Slytherin? You're nothing, Harry Potter. Nothing but a boy with a lucky streak. She raised her wand, ready to deliver the killing blow. And Harry, lying on the floor, the dark magic paralyzing him, reached deep into himself. System, he whispered. Help me. Please. The system responded. Emergency protocol activated. Power surge initiated. Warning, this ability can only be used once. Use it wisely. Golden light exploded from Harry's body, blazing with a power that seemed to come from the very heart of the universe. The dark magic shattered, the Horcruxes exploded, and Morana Gaunt screamed as the light consumed her. When the light faded, she was gone. The chamber was silent. Harry collapsed, his body spent, his magic exhausted. But he had won. He had survived. The aftermath of the battle was a blur of healing and recovery. Harry lay in his bed at the leaky cauldron, the system's power slowly restoring his strength. His allies had found him in the ruins of Malfoy Manor, barely alive, but clinging to consciousness. The Nexus network was secure. The attack had been stopped. Morana Gaunt was no more. But the experience had shaken Harry in a way that Voldemort had never managed. He had come so close to losing everything, to losing himself. The power of the system was incredible, but it was also dangerous. He had to be careful, had to use it wisely. He thought about the people who had died, the sacrifices that had been made, the battles that had been fought. He had built an empire, transformed a world, and defeated a dark wizard. But the fight was never truly over. There would always be enemies, always be challenges, always be struggles. But Harry was ready. He had the system, he had his allies, and he had the vision to build a better world. The ultimate upgrade had transformed him, and with that transformation came a responsibility he would never shirk. He was Harry Potter, the King of Magical Britain. And the world was his to shape. Chapter 6, The King of Magical Britain. The golden light of dawn crept through the windows of Harry's private chambers, casting long shadows across the room. He had been awake for hours, lying in the darkness, feeling the steady pulse of the system beneath his skin. The battle with Morana Gaunt had taken more out of him than he wanted to admit, but the system had healed him, restored him, made him whole again. Stronger than before. He rose from the bed and walked to the window, his bare feet silent on the cold stone floor. Below him, Diagon Alley was already coming to life, shopkeepers opening their doors, witches and wizards hurrying to work, children laughing as they chased enchanted toys through the streets. It was a scene of peace and prosperity, a world that had been transformed by his vision, his gold, his power. And yet, Harry felt a familiar ache in his chest. The weight of everything he had built, everything he had sacrificed, pressed down on him like a physical burden. He had defeated Voldemort. He had crushed the old families. He had transformed the wizarding economy and infrastructure. But the war was never truly over. There would always be new challenges, new enemies, new battles to fight. The system pulsed in his awareness, a constant companion that had become as essential as breathing. System status, God tier. User, Harry James Potter. Age, 13. System rank, 10, Magnate, maximum. Magical core, rank 10, God tier, maximum. Skills, 18, all unlocked. Properties, 247. Total value, 47 million galleons. Monthly revenue, 3.2 million galleons. Nexus network, active, full coverage. Magical Britain, transformation complete, 92%. Threat level, minimal. Next objective, consolidation and legacy building. Harry read the words with a mixture of pride and determination. The transformation was complete, 92% of magical Britain had been reshaped by his vision. The old system, with its corruption, inequality, and stagnation, had been replaced by something new, something better. But the work wasn't finished. Not yet. He accessed the system's interface, scrolling through the options until he found what he was looking for. New quest, the crowning. Objective, formally assume your role as the leader of magical Britain. Establish a new government, a new system of law, and a new future for the wizarding world. Reward, permanent God tier status, eternal legacy, and the fulfillment of your destiny. Challenge, the ministry and the old families will resist. They will try to hold on to their power, their privilege, their corruption. You must overcome them, not through force, but through vision. Harry smiled grimly. He had known this day would come, had been preparing for it since the very beginning. The ministry was still standing, its halls filled with bureaucrats who had spent decades enriching themselves at the expense of the people. The old families were still scheming, still plotting, still hoping to regain the power they had lost. But Harry was ready. He had the system, the goblins, the order, and the support of the people. He had the power to reshape the world. "Show me what I need to do," he said. "Show me how to crown myself king." The system responded, flooding his vision with light. The first step was the most obvious, the Ministry of Magic had to be reformed. Harry had been planning this for months, working behind the scenes to build a coalition of reformers who shared his vision. The Order of the Phoenix was at the center of the movement, its members now occupying key positions within the ministry. Lupin had been appointed to the Wizengamot, Tonks had been promoted to head of the Auror office, and dozens of other reformers had been placed in positions of influence. But the old guard was still clinging to power. Minister Scrimgeour, who had been installed after the fall of Fudge, was a decent man, but he was also weak, unable to stand up to the entrenched interests that controlled the ministry. He had been sympathetic to Harry's cause, but he had also been afraid of the old families, afraid of the chaos that change would bring. Harry decided to give him a gentle push. He arranged a meeting at the Leaky Cauldron, in a private room that was shielded from prying eyes. Scrimgeour arrived alone, his face pale with exhaustion, his robes rumpled and stained. "Mr. Potter," Scrimgeour said, sinking into a chair. "I appreciate you meeting with me. The ministry is in chaos. The old families are causing trouble, the goblins are demanding more autonomy, and the people are restless. I don't know how much longer I can hold it together." Harry leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the minister. "That's why I asked you here. I have a solution. A way to end the chaos, to create a new system that will serve the people instead of the old families." Scrimgeour's eyes widened. "What are you proposing?" "A new government," Harry said. "One that is accountable to the people, not to the old families. One that is transparent, fair, and efficient. One that can lead magical Britain into a new era of prosperity and peace. Scrimgeour was silent for a long moment. Then he said, quietly, "You're asking me to step down. To give you control of the ministry. I'm asking you to be part of something greater." Harry said. "The old system is broken. You know that. We both know that. The only question is, are you brave enough to help me fix it?" Scrimgeour stared at him, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Tell me what you need," he said. "I'll do it." The transition was swift and surprisingly peaceful. Harry had expected resistance, perhaps even violence, from the old families. But they were too weak, too divided, too terrified of his power to mount a meaningful challenge. The few who tried to resist were quickly crushed by the combined forces of the Order, the Goblins, and the Aurors who had pledged their loyalty to Harry's cause. Within a month, the ministry had been transformed. Scrimgeour stepped down, replaced by a council of reformers who were accountable to Harry. The old families were stripped of their privileges, their influence reduced to nothing. The corruption that had plagued the ministry for centuries was rooted out, its perpetrators brought to justice. And Harry was recognized as the de facto ruler of magical Britain. But he wasn't a tyrant. He didn't rule through fear or force. He ruled through vision, through the power of the system, through the support of the people who believed in his cause. He created a new government, one that was based on representation and accountability. He established a parliament, with representatives elected from every community in magical Britain. He created a new legal system, one that was fair, transparent, and just. He used his unlimited gold to fund social programs, to build schools, hospitals, and infrastructure that served the needs of the people. And he built a new economy, one that was based on opportunity and innovation rather than privilege and stagnation. The people of magical Britain had never seen anything like it. They had lived for centuries under the rule of the old families, the ministry, the Dark Lords. They had been oppressed, exploited, and ignored. But now, for the first time in their lives, they had hope. And that hope was embodied in the young boy who had risen from a cupboard to become the most powerful wizard in the world. The second step was the most symbolic, the formal recognition of Harry's status as the King of Magical Britain. Harry had never wanted the title. He had never sought power for its own sake. But he had come to understand that the title was necessary, a symbol of the unity and purpose that he had brought to the wizarding world. The coronation was held in the Great Hall of Hogwarts, a location that was rich with history and meaning. Harry had never attended the school, but he had come to see it as a symbol of the old world, the world that he was transforming. It was fitting that his crowning would take place there, in the heart of the wizarding world's most ancient institution. The hall was filled with witches and wizards from across Britain, their robes a riot of color, their faces filled with hope and expectation. The goblins were there, their representatives standing tall and proud. The Order of the Phoenix was there, their members resplendent in their formal robes. The people were there, the ordinary witches and wizards who had supported Harry's cause from the beginning. Harry stood at the center of the hall, dressed in robes of deep green velvet, the Potter crest emblazoned on his chest. He was young, barely 13, but he looked every inch the king he was about to become. The ceremony was simple, but powerful. Ragnarok, the Goblin King, stepped forward and placed a crown of silver and gold on Harry's head, the metal cool against his brow. "Harry James Potter," Ragnarok intoned, his voice echoing through the hall. "You have been recognized by the goblins of Gringotts as the rightful leader of magical Britain. We pledge our loyalty to you, our resources to your cause, and our strength to your vision." Lupin stepped forward next, his face shining with pride. The Order of the Phoenix recognizes Harry Potter as the rightful leader of magical Britain. We pledge our swords, our wands, and our lives to his cause. Tonks stepped forward, her pink hair bright against her formal robes. The Auror Corps recognizes Harry Potter as the rightful leader of magical Britain. We pledge our protection, our loyalty, and our service to his cause. And then, one by one, the representatives of the communities of magical Britain stepped forward, each one pledging their allegiance to Harry, their support for his vision, their hope for the future. Harry looked out at the sea of faces, his heart swelling with emotion. He had come so far, sacrificed so much, to reach this moment. And he had done it all for the people who stood before him, the people who believed in him, the people who had given him the strength to keep fighting. "I accept your pledges," Harry said, his voice ringing through the hall. "And I vow to serve you, to protect you, to build a future that is brighter than anything we have ever imagined. Together, we will create a new world, a world of peace, prosperity, and opportunity. Together, we will build a future that our children and grandchildren will be proud to inherit." The hall erupted in cheers, the sound washing over Harry like a wave. He raised his hand, and the cheers grew louder, the people celebrating the beginning of a new era. Harry Potter, the boy who had risen from a cupboard, was now the king of magical Britain. The third step was the most challenging, building a legacy that would endure. Harry knew that his power was unique, a gift that had been given to him by the system. But he also knew that the system couldn't last forever. One day, it would fade, or he would be gone, and the world would have to stand on its own. He had to build something that would last, something that would continue to serve the people of magical Britain long after he was gone. He started with the Nexus network, creating redundancies and backup systems that would ensure its functionality. Even without the system's direct intervention. He trained a new generation of engineers and technicians, giving them the knowledge and skills they needed to maintain the network. He established a new educational system, one that would continue to produce skilled, knowledgeable, and ethical witches and wizards for generations to come. He created scholarships, apprenticeships, and opportunities that would ensure that no child would ever be left behind. He created a new economic system, one that was sustainable and equitable, that would continue to serve the people long after his gold was gone. He diversified the economy, creating opportunities for innovation and growth that would continue to drive prosperity for centuries. And he created a new government, one that was accountable to the people, that would continue to serve their needs long after he was gone. He established a constitution, a set of laws and principles that would guide the wizarding world into the future. Harry was building a legacy, a foundation that would endure. But the most important part of the legacy was the people. Harry had always known that his power was meaningless without the support of the people. He had built his empire on their trust, their hope, their belief in his vision. And he was determined to repay that trust with a future that was worthy of their faith. He traveled across magical Britain, visiting communities that had been neglected for centuries, listening to their concerns, and offering solutions that were tailored to their needs. He built schools in remote villages, hospitals in underserved areas, and infrastructure in communities that had been left behind. He created opportunities for the disadvantaged, the marginalized, the forgotten. He funded programs for the elderly, the sick, and the disabled. He created jobs, training programs, and apprenticeships that gave people the skills they needed to build better lives. And he created a culture of hope, a spirit of optimism. That swept across magical Britain like a wave. The people were no longer afraid. They were no longer oppressed. They were free, empowered, and ready to build a future that was worthy of their dreams. Harry looked out at the people who had gathered in the streets of Diagon Alley, their faces filled with joy and hope, and he knew that he had done something extraordinary. He had transformed the wizarding world, built an empire that would endure for generations, and created a future that was brighter than anyone had ever imagined. But he also knew that he couldn't do it alone. He needed the people, their support, their belief in his vision. And they needed him, his power, his vision, his commitment to their future. Together, they would build a world that was worthy of their dreams. The final step was the hardest, letting go. Harry had spent years building his empire, sacrificing everything to create a better world. But he knew that he couldn't hold on to it forever. He had to let go, to trust that the people would continue his work, to believe that the legacy he had built would endure. He gathered his allies in the Great Hall of Hogwarts, the same hall where he had been crowned, and he addressed them for the last time. "My friends," he said, his voice steady. "We have accomplished something remarkable. We have transformed the wizarding world, built an empire that will endure for generations, and created a future that is worthy of our dreams. But I can't do it alone. I can't be the king forever. One day, I will be gone, and the world will have to stand on its own. The hall was silent, the faces of his allies filled with a mixture of sadness and determination. "That's why I'm stepping down," Harry said. "I'm not going away. I'm not abandoning you. But I'm giving you the power to continue my work, to build on the foundation we have created together. I'm trusting you to lead the wizarding world into the future." Lupin stepped forward, his eyes glistening with tears. "Harry, you don't have to do this. You're the king. The people need you." "The people don't need a king," Harry said. "They need leaders, partners, allies. They need people who will fight for them, serve them, and believe in them. And I have found those people. I have found all of you." He smiled, a warm, genuine smile that seemed to light up the hall. "I will always be here for you. I will always be your ally, your friend, your partner. But I can't be your ruler. I can't be the one who holds all the power. That's not what I built this empire for. I built it to create a world where no one has to be locked in a cupboard, where no one has to live in fear, where everyone has the opportunity to build a better life. And that world is here. It's real. And it's yours to protect." The hall erupted in applause, the sound echoing through the ancient stones. Harry stood at the center of it all, his heart full, his mind at peace. He had done it. He had built the empire, defeated the dark forces, and transformed the wizarding world. And now, he was trusting the people to continue his work. It was the hardest thing he had ever done, but it was also the right thing. The months that followed were a time of transition. Harry stepped back from the day-to-day management of his empire, trusting his allies to lead the wizarding world into the future. He remained a presence, a symbol of hope and unity, but he no longer held all the power. The government continued to function, its leaders elected by the people, accountable to the people. The economy continued to grow, its prosperity shared by all. The Nexus network continued to serve the people, its power distributed across the wizarding world. And the people continued to hope, to dream, to build a future that was worthy of their dreams. Harry watched it all with a sense of pride and satisfaction. He had done what he had set out to do. He had transformed the wizarding world, built an empire that would endure for generations. And created a future that was brighter than anyone had ever imagined. But the best part was the people. The children who would grow up in a world without fear. The families who would never have to worry about where their next meal was coming from. The communities that would thrive, united by a shared vision of a better future. Harry had given them all that. He had given them hope. And that was the greatest legacy of all. On a warm summer evening, Harry sat on the steps of the leaky cauldron, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The streets of Diagon Alley were bustling, the shops filled with customers, the air alive with the sound of laughter and conversation. He was at peace. The weight of his empire no longer pressed down on him. The battles were over, the wars won, the future secured. He had done what he had set out to do, and he had done it well. But he was also alone. His allies had moved on, building their own lives, their own futures. The system was still with him, a constant presence, but it had become quieter, more patient, content to let him live his life. Harry smiled, a small, wistful smile. He had never expected to be here, never expected to have achieved so much. He had been a boy in a cupboard, forgotten and alone. Now he was a king, a legend, the most powerful wizard in the world. But he was also human. He had been hurt, betrayed, and broken. He had lost people he loved, sacrificed things he cherished, and fought battles that had left scars on his soul. And yet, through it all, he had never given up. He had never stopped believing in the possibility of a better world. The system pulsed in his awareness, a warm, reassuring presence. System status, God tier. User, Harry James Potter. Status, retired, active emeritus. Legacy, the King of Magical Britain. Impact, transformative. Future, infinite. Harry smiled. The system was right. He had built an empire, defeated the dark forces, and transformed the wizarding world. But the most important thing was the future, the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. He rose from the steps and walked through the streets of Diagon Alley, his footsteps echoing on the cobblestones. The people he passed looked up at him with a mixture of awe and respect, their faces filled with gratitude. He wasn't just the king of magical Britain. He was the symbol of a new era, an era of hope, prosperity, and opportunity. And he would always be there, watching over them, ready to help if they needed him. The years passed, and Harry's legend grew. He was celebrated in songs and stories, his deeds immortalized in the annals of wizarding history. The children who grew up in the new world knew his name, knew his story, knew the sacrifice he had made to build a better future. But Harry never let the fame go to his head. He remained humble, kind, and generous, always ready to help those in need. He traveled the world, learning from other cultures, sharing his knowledge, and building bridges between communities. He never married, never had children. His legacy was the world he had built, the people he had helped, the future he had created. And when he finally passed, centuries later, the world mourned him. The flags flew at half-mast, the bells tolled in every village, and the people wept for the loss of their king. But they also celebrated. They celebrated the life he had lived, the empire he had built, the future he had created. They celebrated the boy who had risen from a cupboard to become the most powerful wizard in history. And they vowed to continue his work, to protect his legacy, to build a world that was worthy of his dreams. Harry Potter was gone, but his spirit lived on. In the children who played in the streets, their laughter echoing through the alleys. In the families who lived without fear, their homes filled with warmth and love. In the communities that thrived, their prosperity shared by all. In the hearts of the people, united by a shared vision of a better future. Harry Potter, the king of magical Britain, had built an empire that would endure for generations. But his greatest legacy was the hope he had given to the world. And that hope would never die. The golden light of the system flickered one last time, a warm, reassuring pulse that seemed to say goodbye. System status, God tier, eternal. User, Harry James Potter. Legacy, the king of magical Britain. Impact, transformative. Future, infinite. Farewell, Harry. You have done well. Harry smiled, the golden light fading from his vision. He had done it. He had built the empire, defeated the dark forces, and transformed the wizarding world. He had become the king of magical Britain. And he had done it all with the help of the system, the goblins, the order, and the people who believed in him. It was the end of one story, but the beginning of another. Harry Potter, the boy who had risen from a cupboard, had built a legacy that would endure for generations. And the world he had created would continue to grow, to thrive, to inspire hope in the hearts of all who lived in it. The king of magical Britain had done what he had set out to do. He had built a better world, a world of peace, prosperity, and opportunity. And nothing would ever be the same. The end.